So tomorrow, severe weather. Here's a look at the overall big picture area of great concern here. We're looking at severe weather threatening many areas here across much of the Mississippi Valley. And I'm going to switch over to radar here so you can see where the warnings are and where the storms are at their peak right now. So we're tracking severe weather through parts of Missouri, Illinois, southern Indiana right now. That's ongoing. But we're also very concerned about an area a little farther south and west into parts of southeast Kansas, into southwest Missouri as well. So Aaron J. Jack's live stream is up. We're going to be checking in with various storm chasers. You can see places like St. Louis in the line of fire. Also, we have Pittsburgh, PA in advance of this. But again, we're really concerned about areas like St. Louis and down into places like western Kentucky this evening, and tonight southern Missouri, southeast Kansas as well. So a few areas that we're really dialed into now. I'm going to turn the lightning off, and you can see with a little more clarity where the storms are. We're going to switch over to the high-res radar data out of St. Louis, Missouri here. And you can see the ongoing warnings. We have a pair of hooks on the map here. And as we take a look at the overall setup, I'm going to press pause on things and into an area near Mexico, just south of there, into Audrain County, a tornado warning there. But there are two hooks, in fact, into the southern, southwestern Audrain County and also into south central parts of the county as well. That's one of the tornado threats at the moment that we're facing right now. And as we switch over to another radar site farther east, I just wanted to make sure nothing's popping farther west regarding tornado threats at the moment. We have numerous severe storms on the map farther east as well. And the Evansville, Indiana radar site is going to show us this. We can take a look at the storm hazards within this near Vincennes. And overall, as we bring back up the Evansville radar site here, I want to make sure everything's functioning. Looks like that particular product may be down here at the moment. But regardless, large hail and damaging winds are our main concern. So again, a lot of these storms are going to continue to move east, but the upward trend in severe weather potential is going to be maximizing a little farther west, where the atmosphere is still untapped. And this area along Interstate 44 in Missouri from Springfield to St. Louis. That's a very volatile place to be right now, as we're going to be facing some nasty storms. We want to check in with some of our storm chasers here. And at times we might be checking in with Aaron J. Jack or Brandon Clement, but also Tony Lawback, AccuWeather's own Tony Lawback here. So a lot of concerns. And Storm Chaser Tony Lawback is joining us now from Cape Girardeau, Missouri. This is one area where we're seeing some very early convection. In fact, I could bring up the high-res radar data out of Paducah, and you may see this and notice not even a whole lot of lightning yet, but the conditions are right for development in the hours to come. So, Tony, what are you looking at here, and what are you observing here, kind of pre-storm with the environment in this part of southeast Missouri?
Well, Geoff, as you mentioned, we're early in the convective stages here. We've been kind of watching some showers and an occasional clap of thunder every now and again with some of the developing storms. We've got a couple of areas that we're looking at, one just to the north of Cape Girardeau, and then one down near Tams. Those are both going to slide their way to the northeast into southern Illinois here, and potentially, and could be very rapidly, become severe. We've seen very rapid development of a lot of different storm types throughout the day. St. Louis obviously facing numerous tornado warnings from about multiple different storms today. Fortunately, for the most part, they were on the north side of kind of the cooler outflow. So while some damaging storms with some hail and winds came through there, I don't think anything significantly tornadic happened as they were kind of on the cool side of the boundary. South of that boundary is kind of where the focus is. You mentioned that volatile air kind of along 44 that extends into southern Illinois as well, where we are really seeing temperatures near 80 degrees, above 80 degrees in some cases, a lot of juice, a lot of moisture, all the ingredients in place. The big question is going to be, what does the chef do with these ingredients? Do we have a master chef at the helm who's going to make just absolutely world-famous cupcakes, and that's when we get this big outbreak? Or is it going to be a blind monkey on one leg standing on ice that just makes a big mess of things here? That's really the question that kind of still exists at this point in the event. Early on here is, what are we going to see? How is this going to evolve over the next couple of hours? Right now, my gut feeling, not so good for folks in the region here. This is a setup I'm accustomed to out here. In fact, less than a year ago, a very similar setup where we saw tornadic storms in St. Louis and that was the day we had the very strong EF4 that went through Marion, just south of Route 13 in southern Illinois. So a lot of fresh memories. And of course, we can't forget Mayfield back in December many years ago as well. So currently in Cape Girardeau, obviously we're dealing with the Mississippi River, so there are just a few areas where we can cross between St. Louis and then further down where I-57 meets I-55 near Sykeston. So I'm working my way to the Illinois side of the river to kind of get myself in between these developing cells. This will be the initial target for me, and we will continue to watch other development in a lot of other places. So we're going to be spread out through the day. A lot of storms going on, Geoff. I know you're going to keep just as busy as well. So we'll keep tabs on everything for you here, and we'll see what happens here over the next several hours.
All right. Well said there, Tony. Thanks for that report. And I suspect in the hours to come when we head back to you, it's going to be a lot more active there. I'm going to turn my volume down here. I was just bringing up the YouTube feed because I want to be able to see your comments here if you're joining us through YouTube. And again, feel free to ask questions in the chat. I do want to remind everybody that again, sometimes the big picture, best questions, kind of zooming out, looking at the mechanics of the storm or the overall behavior of the severe weather event, may be more profitable questions than when does this hit my backyard. You can always get that information on the AccuWeather app with MinuteCast. Now, we're going to answer that question when more populated places are asked about, but just we want to be as appealing to the most people as possible here and answer as many relevant questions as possible. So if it's a very small community, we may not be able to answer that question. But we also have some other teammates who are involved here, and they'll be answering in the chat as well. So we are glad that you're with us again on this YouTube Live simulcast of the AccuWeather Network, tracking severe weather. And Tony Law back there in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. But now I turned my telestrator on, so I wanted to illustrate with a little more clarity what we're concerned about in the area of Mexico, Missouri. I'm going to switch over to the high-res radar data again. And this is in the area of Audrain County, Missouri. There are two hooks that we're concerned about here. And when I say that, I'm talking about this shape here and then also this shape here. There's kind of a cadence to the atmosphere here. Sometimes you can get multiple supercells within the same county, even if they're separated by a couple of dozen miles. And there's likely some hail on the north side. But let's switch over to the high-res not the reflectivity, but also I want to see the velocity data. So just for perspective, this data is coming from St. Louis to the southeast. And again, when we look at the red against the green, there are a couple of couplets here. Neither of these are viciously rotating. In fact, the most established couplet is actually outrunning the previously warned box there. The green there is where you have movement in toward the radar site. But there's another area of concern here to the west where we have a strong outbound signature. So again, two zones here with some rotation. Some risk of an isolated tornado south of Rush Hill and northeast of Benton City, but the established tornado threat that may be the motivator behind the Weather Service's tornado warning is between the community of Champ and Mexico there in Missouri. And zooming out here just for a little more clarity, for some perspective as to where we are. We're just to the northeast of Columbia, a bit north of Jefferson City, capital city. And from Columbia there, about to 20 to 25 miles here. But again, taking these at face value, there's slightly stronger rotation with the lead supercell here, where there's some rotation. You can see the overall structure of the storm wrapping the area of rotation to the south of Ladonia in Missouri. So we're going to continue to track that cell, but also some others. And recent tornado threats have been moving through the area of O'Fallon and the St. Louis area. You can see that some of these hail reports, by the way, have been relatively large. Here we have not the largest of hail, 0.9 inch diameter into Florissant there, major metro suburb of St. Louis. Now, University City, we're getting into the heart of the city now, and we've had 1.5 inch. That's ping pong ball size hail earlier. It was at 7:16 a.m. Now, the message here is we had multiple storms roll through. Earlier this morning in Hillsdale, Missouri, half-dollar size hail has moved through. But we've also had some other concerns heading farther east into Illinois. Colton, Illinois, this afternoon, flooded roads outside of Nokomis on East 23rd Street. Also, not long ago, lightning struck and split a tree at Lake Mattoon. That was at 2:50 Central Time. there north of the area of Effingham, Illinois. So again, that's the nature of some of these reports that we're facing regarding severe thunderstorms. And we're going to be very concerned about this becoming a more explosive severe weather outbreak involving multiple tornadoes. So I'm going to show you a few graphics right now. And I want to make sure that I'm giving you the absolute latest info that we have available. Again, we do have, again, a few different areas with ongoing tornado threats. And our risk area for this evening and tonight. We're going with a high risk. That's 3 out of 4 on the AccuWeather 4-tiered severe threat index. And you can see that highlights the area around St. Louis down to Cape Girardeau, where Tony Lawback is located. And we're going to be seeing these storms rolling through these areas. New development into southern Missouri, the northern part of the Ozark Plateau, even south of I-44. And here's our future radar. This is based on the HRRR model, the High Resolution Rapid Refresh, 11 p.m. Central, nasty storms marching east. Stay with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We're going to go to a quick break there. We're staying live on YouTube. And thanks for sticking with us live here on our YouTube feed. And I'm going to check the chat here for some questions. We may have had some YouTube buffering issues here. Hopefully we're in good shape now. The stream looks good on my end. Somebody asks, what about for Michigan? Wondering about Michigan. Well, while I have the graphics up, I'm going to go back to our larger map, and we can talk about tonight and tomorrow. There is some risk in southwest Michigan. We had some nasty storms roll through Chicago, and there were a lot of, in the past hour, some tremendous reports of turbulence for flights coming into Chicago O'Hare. Not just the smaller jets, even larger 737s reporting significant turbulence. We've had gusts of wind measured over southern Lake Michigan here. Over 60 and even near 70 miles per hour. In fact, I'm going to go back to the radar so I could show you that. This is a little removed from the true traditional severe storms, but as we turn on the reports here, I think these are just convective reports. I'm going to kind of go in and bring up some non-severe wind reports. Forgive me here for, I'm on the wrong layer here. Thanks for bearing with me. So I want to bring up wind reports that may not have been associated with severe thunderstorms. And wind gusts here. And then there's non-thunderstorm wind gusts. And that's where we're going to see these. So take a look at this report here. 71 mile per hour gusts in 17 miles east of St. Francis. This was actually a measurement from a ship, from an 84-foot mast, high elevated over the western end of Lake Michigan, of 71 mile per hour wind. So there's some screaming winds coming into western Michigan at this point here. And there are some severe thunderstorm warnings, but you may look at this and say, what's the deal? I don't see a whole lot of lightning with any of these severe thunderstorm warnings. In fact, we turn the lightning reports on, and there is some, this is unusual, but severe thunderstorm warnings issued for areas like Grand Rapids where there's just some light rain falling, but very strong winds. So Kent County, Michigan, Barry County, Eaton County, Calhoun County, and Kalamazoo County, Michigan. You have severe thunderstorm warnings right now for straight line wind that's not even really accompanied by intense downpours. You got some moderate rain, and that's what, Interstate 65 pulling north. I believe, let me double check that here. I'm going to turn my reports, my interstate shields on. Interstate 69, so forgive me for that. Interstate 69, moderate rain, but severe thunderstorm warnings for an event that's not even producing lightning. There's very strong straight line wind moving through this environment right now. And that's somewhat of an unusual setup here in southern Michigan. That's adjacent to the main severe risk. But that is a big concern here. And we're dealing with, again, some ongoing threats that are very significant farther south, and that's going to take most of our attention. But that's the story in Michigan. And then as we go back to our main graphics here, while the tornado threat is maximized way southwest of Michigan, tomorrow there is a risk for some severe storms here into areas much farther south. But the worst of this in Michigan is probably what you're experiencing right now. Some moderate rain, very strong winds, with severe thunderstorm warnings that may not even have lightning with them. But that's what the Weather Service is doing to handle the wind that is convective in nature here. And again, not a good day for flights in and out of Chicago or Detroit, as the turbulence is going to increase there as well. So I do want to check out some other items here. Again, the northern there's a particularly dangerous situation, tornado watch. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So thanks for joining us here on the AccuWeather Network as we continue to face an ongoing severe weather event here into areas like St. Louis and all surrounding areas. As we take a look at these storms rolling through this region, we're going to go back to radar. We were actually during the break talking to our YouTube live nonstop stream about the unusual situation up in parts of Michigan with damaging straight line winds and severe thunderstorm warnings accompanying light to moderate rain. There's no lightning up there, but it's still a disruptive event. We've got nasty straight line wind producing thunderstorms that feel very much like a traditional severe thunderstorm here into southern parts of Indiana, south of Bloomington, north of I-64, but south of Bloomington. And then we head west into areas near Bowling Green, Missouri, with a new tornado warning. And we're going to soon go to Connor McCrory here. But I do want to briefly just address this ongoing tornado threat here. I'm going to switch over to the St. Louis high-res radar data once again. And this newer tornado warning, this is for the warning. This is for the area that I mentioned was an area of rotation that actually outran the previous tornado warning, and it was no longer warned, but I was mentioning that there was rotation there, and actually that rotation was stronger than the tornado warned cell. And here we are now. The Weather Service is on board with issuing a large tornado warning for eastern Audrain County and Pike County, Missouri, because of this ongoing couplet. And the area of rotation here is just south of Ladonia. This is the cell that has taken center stage regarding the current tornado threat. So take shelter if you're in this area here. Ladonia, east to Bowling Green. There's still a small risk near Mexico where that other tornado warning is still present. But the main area of rotation is now ramping up there into an area near Ladonia. And that is the biggest concern right now. Those are your two tornado warnings at the moment. We do want to check in with Stormchaser Connor McCrory, who's joining us live from Chester, Illinois. And Connor, how's it going where you are? What's your take on the situation as we look at the next few hours based on what you're observing in the atmosphere?
Well, so far, so good down here in the Chester area, but we know that could change at any time. We were up in St. Louis earlier. There have been tornado warnings a little bit further north in the St. Louis area. But for storm chasing purposes, we want to kind of stay down here where we think more storms are probably going to develop back to our west, come across the Mississippi River into Illinois. And also, we might have some more storms developing out to the east, moving into the Kentucky area. So it's a bit of a tough call in today's chase. There's a lot of storms that are expected to develop and pose a tornado threat. So we're just kind of waiting to see which one ends up being the one we want to target.
That makes sense, Connor. This whole setup here, pretty volatile, at least when we look at the environment to your west. What goes into the decision as to where you want to put yourself? I know it's tough. Sometimes we have a whole lot of chasers in one area. Other times, chasers go to different locations. Sometimes people might chase the kind of the northern fringe where you may be closer to the triple point. Other cases, you go farther south where there's more instability, but perhaps a little bit less dynamics. What factors into your decision? Is there a type of storm that you prefer to chase compared to others?
I mean, I love dryline storms, always have, but that's not really what we're dealing with out here in this part of the country today. Like you said, sometimes you might want to be a little further north, closer to the triple point. But I think today, with all that cold air a little bit further north, we're targeting some of the storms that are going to be more out in the open, warm sector. There's a ton of wind shear today, so we don't have to rely so much on the locally enhanced wind shear along one boundary. There's major synoptic scale wind shear overspreading this whole region in eastern Missouri into Illinois. So it's really going to come down today for us I think we're going to want to pick a storm based on terrain and which storm is able to stay the most isolated, move out of that national forest over here into Illinois, and maintain strong rotation as it moves into this area.
That makes good sense. Well, Connor, we appreciate your reporting. Be safe out there when things do ramp up in your area there. And we'll look forward to checking back in with you in a little bit. Storm Chaser Connor McCrory. Good stuff there, Connor. And as we take a closer look at what else is happening across the region, I switched back over to radar here, and you can see that areas north of Interstate 70, we have those two tornado warnings that we were talking about. Really, there are two cells there. The eastern one is what has my eye more than the western one at the moment. It's just got a more a dramatic hook at this point, and also the velocity data is a little more impressive with that one. It's also in an environment that's a little bit less impeded on by other storms. In fact, I think that the first one, the eastern one, is actually probably impacting the environment a little bit more and perhaps disrupting this weak residual rotation there north of Mexico. So near Ladonia, we have a tornado threat there that continues. And as we zoom in on this cell here, I just want to take a look at this. Moving northeast at 45 miles per hour. We were going to zoom in and extrapolate its forward movement to the northeast at 45 miles per hour. You can see that this would be into Curryville in about 21 minutes. So that lands us around, if it's 5:20 Eastern, 4:20 Central Time, around 4:40 Central Time. This potential tornado would be rolling into Curryville, so take shelter now. You don't want to make this a last-minute decision. Again, take shelter now in Curryville. By the way, your tornado warning runs until 5 p.m. Central Time. So that is a concern. They're ongoing until 5 p.m. Central Time. Overall, the severe risk is going to still be present with us here for the bulk of the evening in many areas. Some of you on the chat are asking about Champaign, Illinois, and the area near Champaign. You are along Interstate 74. There's nothing urgent or imminent for you in Champaign. The overall greatest risk is going to be a little farther south, but we got to keep an eye out here. There's filling in the gaps. The more unstable air mass is farther south for the southern half of Illinois. And again, switching back over to that other graphic, I'm going to take you back to our overall graphic. There is still a significant risk in Champaign. Nothing urgent. But again, I am concerned about that area later this evening. And the greatest threat for tornadoes will be a little farther south. So here you can see we do expect to see a squall line roll through Champaign. That will be very disruptive. Somebody asked about New Jersey. We're not expecting severe weather in New Jersey tied to this. That's the good news there. Hey, we're going to send the break to the network to the break real quick. And thanks for staying with us here on the AccuWeather Network, on our YouTube live stream. I do want to get under the hood of the system here just briefly. I'm noticing that some of our warnings are showing Eastern Time. And if I can, I want to display that in Central Time here. So I want to get under the hood and hopefully change that. I'm not sure if I can easily do that for the whole system as a whole. But just trying to think out loud here. We're going to be back with the network here in about 90 seconds. But I think on the fly here, I'm just going to continue to verbally correct to Central Time Zone instead of Eastern Time. There is a way to change the system clock. I don't know if I have done this recently enough on the fly. Here we are. Set up time zones. Use the time zone of map location. Let's see if that will help us. And I think that this is going to just be better for everybody. So thanks for your patience here on the YouTube Live. And there we are. We're back into Central Time. So I think that was a good move at the expense of your time here for the past minute and a half. It's going to be for everybody. We're going to be live with you on here until 8 Central, 9 Eastern. Pennsylvania will be facing some rain tied to this. Somebody asked about Pennsylvania. Owen there asking about Peoria. Pennsylvania will see some rain from the storm system, but we're not expecting much severe weather in Pennsylvania tied to this storm system. Again, as we switch into the big picture, you can see tonight's risk takes us about as far east as Dayton, Ohio, and then tomorrow's risk is decisively farther south, just following the instability. This is a strong cold front. And the front's going to kind of play a reset here, dropping the dew points and bringing cooler air in behind this. So I'm going to clean up my mess, and we're going to get ready for the network to rejoin us here in just a few seconds. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network and rejoining our YouTube Live commercial-free simulcast. And again, we're going to be with you until 9 Eastern, 8 Central, and we'll have additional coverage on the AccuWeather Network through the overnight hours as well. But you can always get the latest with the AccuWeather app. We want you to know whenever a warning is issued for your area, whether it's 4 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon. We are facing some ongoing severe threats. I think in New York, you're going to be fine with this one. Maybe a little bit of rain, but no severe threat. The wind will be a little more active. You'll notice a bit of a breeze with the showers tomorrow, but it's not going to be anything like the severe weather that we're concerned about right now in parts of Missouri north of Interstate 70 and also to the north of Interstate 64 in south central parts of Indiana with an ongoing severe threat. We have one ongoing tornado warning. It's for one cell that has had our eye over the past half hour. Initially, there was actually a little secondary swirl that prompted a tornado warning, but the primary tornado threat that we're facing right now is moving through parts of Audrain County, Missouri, and into Pike County of Missouri. And I want to switch over to the high res so we can, it's like putting our glasses on. And actually, this makes the radar a little more accurate in timing as well. There's less processing involved in this version of the radar data. Even though it looks noisy, you can see all that blue stuff that's ground clutter to the bottom right. None of that really matters, but what does matter is the location of the storm right now. And just a quick assessment of the velocity here. We're dealing with a stronger couplet. This is ramping up here. Strong inbound against outbound wind. By the numbers here, we're looking at a couplet that's bringing us, again, it's not ridiculously strong, about a 52-mile-per-hour contrast between the inbound and the outbound wind. A few thousand feet up in the atmosphere here. We're looking at this again. It's a distance of about 60 miles from the radar site, so a few thousand feet up. Rotation bringing a tornado threat. And the AccuWeather Network just went on a quick break here, but I'm going to check out the chat here for more questions. Huntsville, Alabama. We have a concern for you tomorrow in Huntsville. And I realize I'm just kind of catching some of your questions as I glance down, but we do have concerns about areas like Bowling Green, Kentucky. That's a bigger threat tonight and again tomorrow in Bowling Green. Huntsville, Alabama, we're concerned about you later tomorrow evening, tomorrow night. Some risk, but it's a some risk for Huntsville, not a tremendous risk in Huntsville. I'm looking at tomorrow's map there from our forecasting department. That's what I'm sharing with you right now. Defiance, Ohio. I've been to Defiance. I used to work in Toledo, so one of you asked about Defiance, Ohio. You're kind of on the far eastern fringe of our risk area for tonight, and then tomorrow the risk drops a little farther southeast. You're going to have some showers around tomorrow, some thunderstorms possible. We could take a look at tomorrow's risk area here, and you're going to have a stormy time in Defiance. Some thunderstorms will be out there. You can see at 11 p.m. Tonight, there is this squall line kind of nosing in, knocking on the door of Van Wert, Ohio, moving through Fort Wayne. So let's watch as this plays out here. It could bring some strong winds to Defiance, but it's going to be embedded within a large shield of rain, so the explosive, severe thunderstorm threat's kind of waning at that point, and the severe tornado threat is more limited as well. So that's the idea there for Kit Newell there in Defiance, Ohio. It rained in Pennsylvania on Saturday. Took a walk in it. At least you did it under an umbrella. That's good stuff. New Windsor, Illinois. I'm going to bring up full transparency. I'm not sure where New Windsor, Illinois is, but I'm just bringing that up here on the map. New Windsor, Illinois. The village of New Windsor. This is in Mercer County, Illinois. Population under 1,000. And again, for those of you asking about smaller locations, smaller communities, you can always get that on the AccuWeather app. We're well south of Davenport, Iowa, in New Windsor, Illinois. So we are concerned about the severe weather risk there moving forward. You're technically in our moderate risk. That's 2 out of 4 on the AccuWeather severe threat scale. And as we take a look at the radar here in that area, right now there's nothing urgent for you. You can see we're in a little bit of a break there between Peoria and Galesburg. Peoria, you're going to see some rain, not severe though, but there is some potential for some new development behind that cluster of storms near Quincy. I'm most concerned about areas south of Quincy, but as we show you the future radar, this is the high-res rapid refresh model. You can see there's a little bit of noise there south of Davenport. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of the high-end storms there, though. The way things are behaving, I like the trend for you north of Galesburg. I like that we're not seeing a whole lot of development in the short term. There's still some risk. We don't want to close the door prematurely on severe weather potential there. There could be a gusty storm, but the greater threat is certainly farther south, down into southern parts of Illinois. So that's the idea in New Windsor. I'd give it a smaller risk, a declining risk. And you'll notice that our tornado risk map, it's really south of you, south of Peoria. And I think that's the area of greatest concern. I'm noticing a new tornado warning into Boone, Callaway, Cole, and Monteau County for another cell. So the AccuWeather Network's going to rejoin us here momentarily. We'll be checking in with more storm chasers here. And one more glance at the chat here. Pontiac, Illinois. I'm going to quickly bring that up here on the map. Pontiac, Illinois. And I'll get back to you in just a little bit on that. All right, thanks for joining us here on the AccuWeather Network and still being with us on our commercial-free YouTube Live. Hey, if you're about to run out the door and maybe turn the TV off for one reason or another, you can bring us up on YouTube, and I'm checking out the chat, trying to answer as many questions as possible here during our breaks on the AccuWeather Network. And for example, somebody just asking about Pontiac, Illinois, looking at that being east-northeast of Peoria, way southwest of Chicago. Again, you've got some disruptive weather headed your way in that area. There's Pontiac, Illinois. And you can see if we extrapolate the forward motion of this big clustering of storms, there is some severe weather potential for you, obviously. It's greater to your south. It is far greater to your south, but I want to take a look at this later. This new trending ongoing severe threat involving a brand new tornado warning, and the St. Louis radar site is going to be our best set of eyes on this. You know what? We might check out this view from Springfield, Missouri. Might be a slight difference in interpretation here. The Springfield Weather Service office issuing a severe thunderstorm warning for the area near Versailles in Missouri, but Montague County and Jefferson City and Cole County under the warning issued by the Weather Service in St. Louis. And our concern here, as we look at this storm from south to north, look at that couplet here. I'm on board with this risk near Excelsior, Missouri. Look out. We've got a storm with a strong couplet strengthening, increasing outbound wind from the Springfield, Missouri radar site, inbound wind from Glenstead. So there's your area of rotation here between Glenstead, Missouri and Excelsior. I'm going to switch over to the St. Louis radar site, give us another set of eyes on this one here. And this is going to make the radar look a little bit different. Not as impressive from the St. Louis radar perspective, but just measuring the distance and where we are hitting this. Man, this is 116, 117 miles up into the atmosphere here from the St. Louis perspective. I think the best set of eyes is from Springfield. And we're going to break out the measuring stick. Yeah, this is only, well, wait a minute, that's the wrong cell. Forgive me here. Everything's in real time. As I get my wits. So this is only 92 miles away. So Springfield is giving us the best set of eyes on this one. And that is indicating this area of newly trending rotation. And that is why we're concerned about a tornado. And the tornado threat right now would be in Morgan County, Missouri. So if we were to kind of put all of the National Weather Service's political boundaries aside and draw something up to help you the most, this is how we would draw the tornado warning for this. It would include both portions. There's your tornado threat from eastern Morgan County. Take shelter if you're in eastern Morgan County. You've got an upward trend with this tornado threat. So again, here's the real world risk of the tornado threat. Eastern Morgan County, Missouri, moving into parts of Montague and Cole counties of Missouri as well. So those are some concerns. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. We're going to bring up the St. Louis radar site again. And again, that's the main cell that's motivating that warning. Again, it's just a political boundary there and a difference in the Weather Service opinions as to why there's not a tornado warning in eastern Morgan County. But I would treat it like a tornado warning east-northeast of Versailles, Missouri. Maybe it's Versailles. I know in Kentucky they pronounce it Versailles, not the French pronunciation. And your results may vary depending on where you live and the town named as such. Also, we're tracking some severe storms into parts of Lawrence County, Missouri. There's Lawrence, southeastern Jasper County, way southeast of Carthage and Joplin, northeastern parts of Newton County as well. Hey, Stormchaser Aaron Jack is joining us live from Perryville, Missouri. Mr. Jack, what are you observing out there? What are you seeing?
Yeah, hey, Geoff, I'm on I-55 right now, headed southbound toward Cape Girardeau. I believe that's how you pronounce it, right on the state line with Illinois. Got the Mississippi River off to my left here, so it's a crossing across the Mississippi River. We are tracking severe weather here today in eastern Missouri and western Illinois, the southern portions of Illinois. It's a tricky setup today. It's quite a large area of storms. I started the day off way back in Springfield, Springfield, Missouri, and worked my way east this morning, kind of following those storms as they made their way towards St. Louis, eventually becoming tornado warned there north of the St. Louis metro area this morning, early afternoon. And then working my way back to the west, trying to figure out where we're going to get stormed at today. And right now, it's looking like I'm thinking here in the southeastern part of Missouri, partially because once we get east a little bit, we get into Illinois, so a little bit better terrain there for tracking storms and whatnot. And off to my west here in Missouri, we've got that Mark Twain National Forest. So very difficult to chase in the national forest off to the west, and very dangerous if you live there, because if there are any tornadoes, which we do have a chance for tornadoes today in this area, and some of those tornadoes could be strong, very difficult to see those tornadoes coming. So anyone living in those areas is definitely going to want to adhere to listen to those warnings, get into your safe spot, into your basement or an interior room. If you find yourself in a warning today or later tonight. Right now, I've been watching for the past couple of hours, storms trying to develop here in this Cape Girardeau area. They've been failing to get going. I'm wondering if, they're struggling to get through the cap yet. But this does look like where eventually a storm may develop later today, later this afternoon, and possibly off to the west, southwest, into Missouri a little bit. So be tracking these storms here for you guys. Hopefully, everything is not too bad today, but it is a significant setup. So it is a potential for dangerous weather tonight. Back to you, Geoff.
All right, good stuff. We appreciate that report there. Aaron J. Jack getting in position. We're at that point in the storm mode here, the storm setup, where a lot of the chasers are getting in position as opposed to tracking active storms right now. We are still tracking a severe weather threat to the northeast of Jefferson City and not far from Columbia. Just talking to Guy Pearson, who is in agreement there, and the new trending short-term threat is in that area, but overall, Guy Pearson with our Wichita Severe Weather Center there, talking about the tornado area being greatest east of Springfield, Missouri. So again, it's the southern half of this area here, and Springfield's right around this zone here. So the southern half of this area is going to be kind of prime time for severe as we move forward, and there may be a decrease in the trend northward. We don't want to close the book on that. I don't want to go rogue. We believe firmly in a consensus-based approach to forecasting here at AccuWeather. And if you line up, again, here's actually our updated map. If you line up a lot of very good forecasters, one very good forecaster, he or she would rarely beat the consensus among many strong forecasters. Again, that's why we really kind of believe firmly in the consensus-based approach to forecasting here at AccuWeather. So I don't want to go rogue, but the trending concern is increasing from Springfield east, southern Missouri, southern Illinois, and maybe a little bit less as you get closer to the Quad Cities up there near Davenport, Moline, and so forth. There's your future radar and clouds deep into the night. Widespread areas of concern, especially in the southern half of that area. But here, if you're in the red zone here, if you are in the red zone, take shelter this evening or have a plan to know where to go. Again, don't take shelter until there's an urgent need, whether there's a tornado warning issued. When a tornado warning is issued, that's when you take shelter. But just beware of the risk in this red zone. Have your shelter ready and be ready to go with that tornado threat escalating in some of those areas. I want to bring up the watches graphic, and Kayla Schuster, meteorologist Kayla Schuster, assembling this one for us here, taking a look at the tornado watch boxes there until 9 Central Time for most of the northern half of the Ozark Plateau, east, really from US 65 east there, from Springfield to Branson east, and from areas near Bolivar, Missouri, east across the rest of the state, really, if you're near, remotely near or south of Interstate 70. The southern half of Illinois under that tornado watch. You'll notice we're not including, and the Weather Service is not including Davenport under this. The risk is really south of you. Western Kentucky, you're at risk. Western Tennessee, Jonesboro, Paragould, Arkansas, down to Memphis, Tennessee, the Missouri Boot Heel, the confluence of the Ohio and Missouri rivers there, the Mississippi River, I should say. Facing that risk there in a significant way this evening and tonight. We're going to hop back over to the YouTube live conversation. Bowling Green, Kentucky, compared to the area that was just shown. Well, Bowling Green, you're at risk tonight as well. And you can see that the risk area includes Bowling Green later this evening and tonight. You're kind of on the edge of our moderate risk area there in Cave Country, but the greater threats farther west out near Murray. So Murray, Kentucky, Paducah, the greatest risk. Areas near Elizabethtown down to Bowling Green, moderate. That's 2 out of 4 on the AccuWeather scale. And then Lexington and the Bluegrass region, some risk for severe, mainly damaging wind later tonight, and a small risk of an isolated tornado. So that's the big threat here. But, we're really concerned about this whole zone maximizing in potential for severe weather this evening and tonight. And I'm going to switch over to the visible satellite loop because that shows how we haven't seen a whole lot of cloud cover there. In fact, I could show you the dew points as well. But this area, it's a fairly untapped environment where we could see some pretty explosive potential. And looking at the low-level jet here this evening, very strong winds aloft will be fueling the storm, sustaining them as strong straight-line wind producers into Kentucky. But look at the dew points here. I'm going to jump ahead to the dew points. And this is an area you can wear very high humidity, a 68-degree dew point. That's like subtropical air here. And that's very much present, mid-60s and higher into many of these areas here, flow out of the Gulf, driving high humidity to sustain these storms as well. So again, that's the big idea that we are concerned about. So stay with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We'll be right back with you in just a little bit as we track some pretty volatile dynamics driving a severe weather threat across the Mississippi Valley. All right, we're clear from the network, and I want to check out some of your questions in chat here. Putnam County in Ohio, the risk it's not zero there for you. We're looking at you're on the edge of the some risk. So again, we want you to make sure you're aware there will be some gusty wind and some rain tonight, some thunderstorms, but they will be in a decisively weakening trend as they roll into areas around northwest Ohio. Carbondale, Illinois, we're concerned about you. You're right in the middle of our high risk zone, 3 out of 4. And around what time would Carbondale be hit? We're going to take a look at this as we can scrub through future radar. I don't want to take this too literally here, but it would be around 9 p.m. Central Time, 9 to 11 p.m. Central, when Carbondale might be more likely to be hit. I want to make sure that I just want to make sure that we're on the right page here with our ongoing tornado threats. It's been a little bit of a minute since I had the radar up, and I don't want to miss anything here. I'm going to go back over to the tornado threat here with this ongoing setup. The St. Louis radar site showing us up into an area north of Hannibal, Missouri, real close to Quincy, Illinois. This is along the Mississippi River. An ongoing tornado threat is present with us. And, man, we're a little far from that particular radar site. But I don't think we could do it's 85 miles. We've done worse. It's going to be our best set of eyes on this, I think, for the time being. And looking at the velocity data on this, we're going to walk our AccuWeather Network viewers through this as well here in a moment. But I'm just trying to assess the latest here, and there is an area of rotation. Man, I want to see if there's another view of this one, because it's not all that terribly obvious right now based on the velocity data. But again, we have an area of some rotation here between Payson and Liberty. So this is radar indicated here into Adams County, Illinois, and Brown County, Illinois. Some risk of a severe threat and a tornado coming into this area in the next few minutes. So take shelter if you're in this area, Adams County or Brown County. Grand Haven, Michigan, straight line winds, a lot of trees down. I believe that lots of reports there over Lake Michigan of some extreme turbulence as well among larger jets moving into this area. Landing at Chicago O'Hare, some of the pilot reports indicating some nasty conditions there. And that's why you're dealing with some strange severe thunderstorm warnings with no lightning and moderate rain there in parts of southern Michigan. Now we're up to Jackson or Washtenaw counties. I want to zoom in here with this here. Calhoun County, there's Jackson County. So Jackson County, Michigan, now under a severe thunderstorm warning for moderate rain, no lightning. This is not your typical severe thunderstorm warning, but this is issued because of just strong straight line winds, very strong straight line winds moving through this area. Recent reports there, Springfield 51 mile per hour wind at Battle Creek, 59 mile per hour at Battle Creek Executive Airport. So these winds are still strong. Kalamazoo reporting 56 mile per hour winds. Not tenaciously strong, but they're relatively strong. And we did have reports a little earlier out over the lake Take a look at this here. This report, 71-mile-per-hour wind on the mast of a ship on Lake Michigan. Imagine being on that boat at that time. Nasty stuff. And again, a lot of pilots reporting some tremendous turbulence there over southern Lake Michigan. So that's sort of the story behind the story regarding some of those unusual severe thunderstorm warnings in southern Michigan. Thanks for joining us here on the AccuWeather Network, 5:44 Eastern, 4:45 Central Time here. We're tracking severe weather. A lot of questions from Ohio. You've got some rain moving in. There will be some more thunderstorms late at night in western Ohio along I-75, but they're not going to be as strong as what's going on farther west. We're more concerned right now about Missouri and western Illinois and eventually southern Missouri. Greene County, you got a new severe thunderstorm warning there in the Springfield area. Taking a look at the radar data out of Springfield. Here it is. Nasty storm. Moving through the area near Mount Vernon, now into eastern Lawrence County, and now Greene County into it, northern parts, northwestern parts of Christian County, Missouri here, closing in on US 65, moving into the southwestern suburbs, Republic, and many other places here along and mainly south of Interstate 44, south of Halltown. Facing some nasty storms. You've had a tough go of it there in Joplin in recent days. A couple of tornadoes reported in that area. An EF1 touched down off of Schifferdecker Road, very close to where the nasty historic tornado touched down. This one only traveled into town instead of going through town as an EF1 as opposed to an EF5. But our friends at the Carl Junction Fire Department there had another one touch down in their first due area there. Not a good situation. I used to live out that way and was part of that fire department for a couple of years. But as we take a look at the area farther to the north, here we have some ongoing tornado threats. 3 different cells, all with tornado warnings. We're going to look at the first one from the perspective of the Springfield, Missouri radar site, even though it's moving into an area where, again, the warning is issued by the St. Louis radar site. Separate from all that, our SkyGuard team at AccuWeather issuing alerts for many of these cells here from our severe weather headquarters in Wichita, Kansas. And hey, you know what? While we're doing this, we could break down these storms live in real time with the man himself, AccuWeather severe weather expert Guy Pearson, joining us live from the AccuWeather Severe Weather Center in Wichita, Kansas. So, Guy, we've got a lot of businesses that rely on our intel and your intel specifically. Making some important decisions. So what are you tracking right now? I'll follow your lead here as we navigate the radar.
Springfield, I think the Springfield area first, as far as Springfield, Missouri, we've actually had some 2.5-inch hail report out of that. So it's got certainly some large hail. Obviously, the storm has enough rotation to produce that size hail. As we go through and just to the east of that area, we are going to be looking at more of a concern for additional rotation and potentially tornadic development as we do go through the rest of the evening there. So that storm's got some gusty winds, certainly some large hail, so we want to keep an eye out there. But as you've drawn up there, especially as that line of storms gets a little farther east, I think we're going to see those storms probably rotate a little bit more. As you can see there with satellite, they've not no real cloud cover there today, unlike some of the areas farther north. And so they've got a lot of instability and certainly plenty of energy to play with there as those storms go through the rest of the day. As you do go a little bit farther north there towards Jefferson City, that has certainly been a storm that's been concerning. That storm did actually just a little bit ago, did produce 3-inch hail as well. So you can see these storms have a consistency there that they're all rotating. They're rotating enough to create that updraft to really produce large hail and destructive hail to some degree. And, you know, as we sort of go through and look at things the rest of the day, that'll be one thing that we're continuing to see. But that one certainly has had rotation at times and has looked pretty good. And looking at it from a wind velocity there, you know, it's in between those two radars that you were talking about earlier, both Springfield and St. Louis. And so you sort of have to look at one, and you're not really going to see the lowest layers of the atmosphere where the tornadic winds are going to potentially initially develop. So you sort of have to look and see how well the storm is rotating and farther aloft, like you were showing there with the arrows, and it is rotating. So, and has been for a while. And so that's certainly part of the reason why they have that warn. We're in that area too, where we still have that boundary left over from earlier today, and the storms farther north pushing that boundary south. So anytime you have individual storms like that trying to cross that boundary as well, that's going to be problematic. So, just as you're sort of going on up the line to the other two tornado warnings farther north, that's sort of been the case with those as well. Is it's really you just have little pockets of rotation. Some of them you've got a little bit of cell merger that was moving towards Bowling Green, Missouri there. And sometimes one of the things that we're looking for is not only just the rotation, but okay, what thunderstorm or area of rain is it actually overrunning and overtaking? Because that cell out ahead sometimes will have some own winds with it. You have the winds interacting with the main thunderstorm now interacting with that, and that just adds an extra level of rotation sometimes that can produce a quick spin up type tornado.
Again, Guy, it looks to me, you guys are the severe weather experts. Looks to me that this cell moving into the community of Louisiana, Missouri, about to cross the Mississippi River into Pike County, Illinois. Do you think that's transitioning to more straight line wind? I know that we need to cover for the potential for a brief spin up. But when I look at the kind of that more congealed line of the separation here, it looks a little bit more like maybe outflow dominant action there on the backside. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's trying to get to that point. It actually just sort of overtook one of those little cells that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Sort of see it sort of spun up there, or the thunderstorm or rain shower sort of developed out ahead. Yep, exactly right there. And so as that main part catches up, you sort of have a frame or two where it doesn't look as good, but then sometimes the additional wind velocity that does kick in will help spin up. Just looking at the overall development of additional showers to the south there, leads me to believe that we are sort of north of the main boundary there to where it's not going to spin or have the potential to spin all the way to where we have tornadic type activity. So, but certainly something concerning with the little spin-ups along the way.
All right. Great stuff, Guy. We appreciate your insight. As always, we'll be right back on the AccuWeather Network. And to Guy's point, Guy, that was great. Thank you for that. I don't know if you're still on with us or not. I know you're a busy man, but you can clearly see, and for our viewers, there's a different vector to these pesky small squalls that are developing, as opposed to the primary boundary here that's eastward. So we're going to have a lot of these cell mergers. It looks kind of like a chaotic evening here for some of that, which may be kind of tangential to the main show farther south.
Yep, I would say so. I mean, those are the little cells that I was talking about, and as you get sort of certainly the stronger cells, as they start to overtake some of those areas or basically cross that sort of boundary, then sometimes that's enough of additional spin to get things to spin up there pretty quickly. But yeah, I think certainly right along that I-70 line, I think in south, that's probably, like you've been highlighting, that's going to be our most concerning area here as we go through the next few hours. All
right, great stuff. Well, Guy, we appreciate all you do. And for those of you tuning in on YouTube, Guy Pearson's been with AccuWeather for a long, long time and an expert in severe weather from our Severe Weather Center in Wichita. Thanks, Guy.
Yep, thank you.
All right, good stuff. And again, a lot of different businesses. People don't realize that AccuWeather, I know we have the very popular app. It exists in over 130 languages, AccuWeather.com. People use it all across the world. But also we work with literally half of the Fortune 500 companies. And a lot of the time it's about protecting their assets, keeping employees and properties and structures safe, stopping trains so they don't enter a tornado-warned area. But also a lot of long-range forecasting can be highly profitable. If you need to make a decision, do we want to move 30,000 snow shovels to the New England states in mid-March, or is it not worth it? You want a good long-range forecast to make those decisions. So that's what we do here at AccuWeather when we're not on the air with other members of our team. Thanks for joining us here on the AccuWeather Network. We have lots to talk about. I'm going to check the chat here. If you're tuning in maybe on Roku or through Verizon or through Comcast or Spectrum or DirecTV, we're glad that you're with us. We're also commercial-free on YouTube Live. And people wondering about Metro Detroit. Detroit, very interesting scenario here. You got severe thunderstorm warnings west of town, Jackson County, up into Ingham County and points west, with just moderate rain and no lightning. What's up with that? Well, we got some fierce winds. We had a 71-mile-per-hour gust reported on the mast of a ship over Lake Michigan. Airplanes facing some nasty turbulence. Some people probably will never forget their flight into O'Hare this evening or this afternoon with strong turbulence behind this. And that's the nature of the wind that's moving into Detroit. You're going to see gusts of probably 50 plus miles per hour in some of the western suburbs. Look out there in Washtenaw County, home to Ann Arbor soon. It's coming your way. But otherwise, the severe risk that we're concerned about with tornadoes, it's not present in Michigan. It's much more farther to the south into areas like central and southern Illinois, southeastern parts of the Columbia and Jefferson City area. It's still present to your west, actually, barely west-northwest of Jefferson City. So, again, briefly, the latest and biggest threats here in Jefferson City. We're getting to a spot here where we're still kind of far from the Springfield, Missouri radar site, a little far from the St. Louis radar site. But what we can tell you is that there is rotation approaching Jefferson City, turning the warnings back on. That's the motivation behind that Cole County, southern Boone County, and western Callaway County tornado warning. Other threats farther northeast. And where are we? Or did we just go to break? Okay, we're still up with you here on the AccuWeather Network, but we're going to be commercial-free here on YouTube Live. We're tracking severe threats also involving a couplet, southern Audrain County, eastern Audrain County, into Pike County, Missouri, and farther northeast as well. That's Pike County, Illinois. So Pike County, Missouri to Pike County, Illinois. Two counties, same name, different sides of the river there. And that's an ongoing tornado threat. And then also to the north into Adams County, Illinois. That's the northernmost tornado warning on the map. And I know that I have this somewhat funny-looking radar up here that's showing us the velocity scan, the winds moving in different directions. We are concerned about this whole area here from really south of the Quad Cities for the most part, down through southern Missouri, southern Illinois, western Kentucky tonight. A lot of the chasers we've been checking in with have been kind of generally flocking to this general zone here. And not tracking ongoing cells quite yet because we're concerned about some pretty explosive potential down in this area of southeastern Missouri, southern Missouri. You'll notice on the visible satellite loop, there's not a lot of cloud cover down there, and we haven't had storms work through this area in quite a while. So from I-44 south and east down toward Jonesboro, Mountain Home, Arkansas, the Missouri Boot Heel near Kennett, Missouri, that's where we have some big concerns about the future of this potential severe weather outbreak. You'll notice there are storms even all the way north up in the southeast parts of Minnesota near La Crosse, Wisconsin. And there's some pesky damaging wind potential with that, but the greatest threat really is farther south for the more high-end tornado threat. I'm going to check out the chat here. Is there a tornado in Jefferson City, Missouri? Max Abbott asking. At this point, no tornado reports yet. And I think Jesse Farrell already getting back to that. Tennis ball size hail possible in that area. The tornado warnings on the map right now are all radar indicated. No ongoing confirmed tornadoes. The confirmed tornadoes will turn purple instead of red with this here. Wilson County, Kansas. Hey, I used to work in the Joplin area. Wilson County, you're doing fine right now. Trying to refresh my memory. Wilson County. Which county is Wilson County? Is that home to Neodesha and Fredonia? I'm bringing it up here. Wilson County. Either way, you are in the clear right now. Yes, that is Wilson County. It's amazing what sticks in your mind after many years. But I don't think we're going to see any more threats there. The risk is farther east of you. Cole County, the closest to the tornado there in the St. Martin's area. Let's go up there because that is much farther at risk. Cole County, I'm going to press pause here. Pike County. I'm going to find that chat question there. Sorry, just trying to find it here. A lot of conversation. We like the conversations. Glad that you're submitting some questions in the chat here. We can't answer all these questions. It's all kind of a fire hose, and hopefully as more people join, we're going to get more engagement here as well from others. But Hannibal, Missouri is one of the concerns, and that whole area. Hannibal, our biggest risk for you in Hannibal is flash flooding. And if this makes you feel any better there, the tornado threat is mainly to your southeast at this point. Now, if you're one county east of there in Pike County, we're more concerned about tornadoes for you. But in Hannibal proper, flash flood warning is in effect for you, and that's a big concern in the short term. going to bring up the high-res radar data again. So the greatest threat of a tornado, man, this is scrappy. A lot of this is going to be straight-line wind, but there is still potential for a brief tornado. It's just kind of a broad area the Weather Service is issuing warnings for, where there could be a brief spin-up among mainly straight-line winds here in the area near Pike County, Missouri, and Pike County, Illinois. Thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network as we continue to track an ongoing severe weather event in progress in its early stages here in parts of Missouri and western Illinois. Just talking to some people on our YouTube live simulcast here through the chat. We are talking about severe threats along Interstate 44. People in Quincy and Hannibal wondering what the threat is there. The tornado risk is reducing there, but the flash flooding is a big concern. I am very concerned. We were just talking to Guy Pearson, AccuWeather severe weather expert Guy Pearson, about I-44, that area. This is an area where we have some strong winds and large hail in southern Greene County near Republic and Springfield along US 65 there south of the city. Monette in Barry County, we're getting into it there, northeastern Barry County, southern parts of Lawrence County, Taney County, and Stone County. You're going to be up next. Right now, northern Stone is under a severe thunderstorm warning. And there you can see Cassville facing a non-severe cell, but it's ramping up in this area. A lot of lightning just south of Interstate 44 in the area southwest of Springfield, moving into the southern part of the city there. Springfield home to about 175,000 people. Maybe the population's changed since I last worked in the Joplin area, but that's a nasty storm moving into that area. But large hail has been reported with this. And you can see that we've seen golf ball size hail near Chesapeake in Lawrence County. 2.5-inch diameter hail. Now we're getting up into baseball size hail, and that's nasty stuff that could lead to damage. Stotts City, Missouri in Lawrence County, 2 to 3-inch hail at a spotter from Joplin Fire there along Highway 97. And they're the good spotters there, Joplin Fire Department. A lot of them are trained as storm spotters as well. Again, very weather-savvy part of the country to work and live in there in the Joplin-Springfield area, and for good reason. We have a long history of nasty storms. But dialing into the ongoing tornado threats in Jefferson City, I want to bring up our YouTube live chat here. We want to check back in power outages. Good thought there, Jesse. Michigan always deals with a lot of power outages. So many trees there. I'm going to look at that just briefly in a moment, Jesse. 100,000 without power in Michigan and Wisconsin. Another 50,000 without power in Illinois and Indiana. We'll look at that here briefly. But ongoing tornado threats, before we get into more details, Cole County, Missouri, Boone County, Callaway County, Pike County, Missouri, and Illinois. And again, this is a ragged bunch of warnings here to the north where there's not one dominant couplet. There are some little kinks along the line. Kinks along the line here where we could have brief tornadic spin-ups. There have been some cell mergers and other concerns that have kind of disrupted any single area of rotation from sustaining itself for long periods of time, but it can also lead to chaotic spin-ups. And when I see a long swath of inbound wind like that, I begin to think mainly about straight-line wind, but there could be a brief tornadic spin-up here within that. You can see some little zones here of enhanced winds in conflicted directions. And those are the little kinks where we could see a brief tornadic spin-up. So that's why the Weather Service is issuing broad, large tornado warnings, not specifically anchored to any one finite zone of rotation. Pike County, Missouri, and Pike County, Illinois, facing some of these threats, and a couple of suspicious areas near Calumet, Cyrene. Take shelter if you're under any of these tornado warnings, because things can change on a dime. Northeastern Adams and northwestern Brown County of Illinois also under a tornado threat. And a quick look at the ongoing risk as the watches are up. I'm going to do a little search here. Forgive the wild flashing of different graphics. I'm just trying to do a couple of things at once. There are your tornado watches in red, severe thunderstorm watches in yellow, and the power outage look here. We're going to have plenty of time to get to Tony here during this block on the AccuWeather Network. I want to bring up the north central power outages here. Jesse Farrell, the Weather Matrix. Eyes and ears here off air. And this is what he was suggesting, and for good reason. Look at all the outages in Michigan. So between Wisconsin and Michigan, we have over 100,000 addresses without power. That's over 200,000 people. This is the number of electric meters not getting service right now. And then Illinois and Indiana, different nature to the storms there. It's mainly more traditional severe thunderstorms, isolated tornadic spin-ups possible. But the environment over Lake Michigan has been wild today with gusts of wind just 70 or 80 feet above the ground at 70 plus miles per hour, as measured by ship reports. Literal boats with masts. One boat with a mast east of Milwaukee, 84 feet up, had a 71 mile per hour gust. And then we get so much information from so many different angles. Airplanes flying into Chicago O'Hare reporting tremendous amounts of turbulence there as well. And a quick look at the airport delays. Major delays. There was a ground stop earlier. Major delays in progress there in Chicago O'Hare. Hey, let's get back to radar. We're going to go to the man himself, Tony Lawback, who is on the move. He's joining us live from Carbondale, Illinois. Tony, this is a familiar place for you. I know you worked for one of the local TV stations there in that area, and you were hoping to chase in that area. You know it so well. So what's your take on this situation?
Well, you forgot to mention a graduated Saluki as well. I'm actually in Carbondale here and holding for a little moment here. Obviously, as we talked last hour, Geoff, we were looking at some developing showers that have not really yet to take off. Having seen a lot of events, not just here in southern Illinois, but similar where you have a very volatile atmosphere and you get some of these early showers that get going that don't necessarily take off, these don't rob the atmosphere of a whole lot of energy. And a lot of times what we see with this is we're just missing that extra kick. And we talk about the low-level jet a lot. You hear us talking about that. Typically, when that starts to set in 6, 7 o'clock local time, that's when you start to really see that kinetic energy get in here. And that's sometimes the last bit of punch you need to start getting some storms developing here. Obviously, with the PDS Tornado Watch, you've mentioned that a couple of times down in this area. We are in a very ripe environment for storms to get going. But right now, something in the atmosphere, and I don't know necessarily what it is. I've got to call into Mother Nature, but she hasn't returned it yet, to tell me exactly what it is that we are lacking that's preventing the storms from getting going down here. That seems like good news. I also feel like it's bad news sometimes because we hype these events. And obviously with the Tornado Watch, there's a lot of things kind of flying around, a lot of information coming out, and people are looking out and saying, well, nothing's happening. Why should I be worried? People down here, again, very familiar with the weather and how it works. This is not unusual to see these type of events sometimes get going early in the afternoon. Sometimes they wait around for a little bit here. So I don't think by any stretch this is anything I would say, okay, we can start to let our guard down because nothing's firing. I think that at the very least, we're probably another hour or so away before one or two of these cells really starts to take off. And again, it could be further to the south and west into the southeast Missouri. It could be here in southern Illinois. It could be a little bit further to the northeast as well. So anywhere along that zone. And then we're going to have all the stuff that you've been talking about out near Springfield, Joplin. All that's going to come in from the west as well later this evening. So at the very least, we're going to see severe weather at some point, but we continue to wait around to see what starts to take off here in terms of that supercell potential. Right now, it's a bit slow going, but we're going to keep an eye on things here because typically when they go up very quick, Geoff.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that, and I agree. Mel, asking producer Mel, Guy Pearson said that he is still on with us. Could we go to Guy just for a moment? Okay, thank you. Yeah, if we can sneak him in before we hit 11 after the hour, before the break, I value his opinion and just okay, Guy. You probably heard Tony Law back there in Carbondale, Illinois. And again, we haven't seen a whole lot down that way yet, but we are very concerned about some of those storms to the west. Is there anything that has your eye right now? I just, we appreciate your insight. And before you move on to your next assignment, as it were, what has your eye right now?
I think, it's to answer part of Tony's question. I think part of what we need is the main, we'll call it shortwave piece of energy to really start kicking out. Sort of the main driver of what the meteorological realm call that wake low. So the winds that are occurring over southwestern Michigan, that's typically what we refer. Well, how that developed was the overnight thunderstorms from last night that affected, areas across the northwestern Missouri northwestern Missouri into northeastern Missouri. helped create that area of low pressure. And it's actually continued to track east across eastern Iowa, Illinois, into southwestern Michigan today. And that's what's been producing that, 50 to at times 60 miles an hour. We have had a few reports here and there that have been above that. I know you talked about the shipmast, as well as then I think Sugar Grove, Illinois, kicked up to 63 mile an hour. We've had some other reports in there, and certainly numerous trees. Well, part of that energy with that wake low as it's moved northeast. Now we've just been waiting for the next piece of energy, looking at it on satellite, having it kick out. So yeah, your low right there, that's been what's prompting some of those warnings. You can see the LSRs, the local storm reports there of wind damage. That will continue across southeast Michigan. It does look like here over the next little bit. Looking at water vapor here, it's sometimes difficult to really pick up what piece of energy is sort of setting off what mechanism. And typically from a forecasting standpoint, it's always easier if we just have one piece of energy kicking out. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And so we've got a couple embedded ones, but those smaller ones that are helping to set off what we've got currently in southwestern Missouri, I think it's going to have to ride a little bit further northeast here over the next couple hours. And then not only that line, I think across southern Missouri or southwestern Missouri, that will then help initiate some of those a little bit more individual cells out towards Cape Girardeau here and places further east here in another 2 or 3 hours.
All right. Thanks so much, Guy. And we just sent the AccuWeather Network to break there. Guy, I appreciate all that insight. That's good stuff. And I briefly went a little rogue and brought up the vorticity map. We do this sometimes on the air. We call it the forecast feed, kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit. But this is, I know it's a chaotic looking map, but this is what we look at all the time, though, when we're forecasting, among other things. And it shows the spin in the atmosphere. Vorticity is kind of a measure of spin. And Guy was talking about this disturbance that raced up into Michigan here through the afternoon. Anybody east and northeast there has been facing some strong winds aloft. And then behind it, these little subtle features, big dip in the jet stream there, and some of these subtle little bits of instability can also be forcing for clusters of thunderstorms. It's such a nuanced, delicate thing, but it takes so little this time of the year to get the storms going, especially when we have dew points where they are here with this broad zone here of 69 degree dew point in St. Louis. Very, very high octane fuel. So Guy, if you're still there, thank you so much for all that you're doing and sharing some of your insight with us here on the AccuWeather Network and our YouTube Live. All right. I'm going to bring up the chat again here. What'd you say there, Mel? I'm sorry. Okay, good. That's good. So somebody wants to see Rushville, Illinois. We're going to go back to radar. I'm checking out some of your comments on the chat. And this large cluster of thunderstorms here kind of draped between Bowling Green, Missouri, and Pittsfield, Illinois, up to Beardstown. It's kind of a noisy, nasty round of storms. It's also bringing flash flooding to some because it's oriented almost parallel to the vector through which the storms are moving, but bringing up the high-res radar data. And again, those of you asking about Michigan, it's the straight line winds with rain showers, not even severe thunderstorms, that we are concerned about. That is a situation that's going to continue to move through the area near Jackson and Ann Arbor and east into the Detroit metro through the early evening. But you're not facing a tornado threat there. So that's the idea in parts of southern Michigan. St. Charles, Missouri, will your houses be destroyed? The likelihood of that happening for any one of you is very, very low. We don't want people to live in fear. I understand that some of you who live in the Midwest, you face a lot of severe weather, the likes of which a lot of us in other parts of the country don't deal with on a routine basis. And, we show you the footage a lot of the time, and it looks scary because we're showing dynamic and dramatic footage. But the risk is present with this setup. But we want you to just know what to do when there is a storm, so you can get down to the basement or a storm shelter. If you don't have a basement, get down to the smallest floor of the small interior room on the lowest floor of your home, away from windows and doors. And again, at the end of the day, statistically, Even if there is a tornado within 40 or 50 miles of you, it's unlikely to hit your house. It is unlikely. You just need to take shelter. And so many people take shelter now, and the weather statistics show some very good news. We have never had a safer time to live in the United States statistically. The evidence is irrefutable. Fewer people die from severe weather now than ever before in U.S. history because buildings are better, stronger, people take shelter, and we have the ability to issue warnings. So again, just take shelter when a warning is issued, and most likely you will be fine. You need to take shelter, though. That's the big thing. All right, we're wondering about Rolla, Missouri. We're going to answer that question as AccuWeather returns in just a few seconds. And the AccuWeather Network is rejoining us now live here on our YouTube live simulcast and the AccuWeather Network. We are facing some nasty storms rolling through the Interstate 44 corridor. Questions about Rolla, Missouri. And we are concerned. This whole I-44 corridor is a big area of concern. The only exception is west into areas near Mount Vernon and Joplin, where you're beginning to step behind the severe weather risk. That's good news. You want those storms to be out of your area, and they have exited stage right. That's also true for Neosho. Now, eastern McDonald County into Barry County. So here we are, eastern McDonald County, Missouri, and areas like Barry County, Missouri, Cassville, Monette. We're facing some nasty storms moving into the western part of the Table Rock Lake area. Branson, you're going to be at risk. Springfield, you're at risk right now. It's a nasty storm in Springfield. Let's go to the high-res radar data in the area near Springfield, Missouri. And switching over to the velocity scan, this is what it looks like. We're waiting for this to begin to rotate here. I'm concerned that we're going to begin to soon see that happen, given the trend. There's outbound, there's inbound. Again, we're looking at the low levels of the atmosphere here. 12 miles from the radar site, southern Greene County. Just noticing, a fairly aggressive outbound push southeast of Springfield. It looks like it probably has crossed 65, which connects the dots between Springfield and Branson. This area approaching Cody. Just be ready for a possible warning in Cody, Missouri, into areas like Fordland as well. Hey, we want to go to Brandon Clement. Brandon, he is a fantastic storm chaser. Brandon shoots some amazing footage, sometimes not from the ground, but also with his drone videography. He's joining us now from Poinsett County, Arkansas. Is that up the Paragould, Jonesboro area? Where are you right now, Brandon, and what are you expecting tonight? Not sure if we have Brandon Clement with us. Maybe trying to establish the connection.
I am.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. So, Brandon, are you Poinsett County? Is that Jonesboro, Paragould area? A little south of Jonesboro. I'm not. Okay. Hey, we may rejoin Brandon in a little bit, but he's one county south of Jonesboro. He's down in this area near Truman and Marked Tree. And obviously, this area has no urgent threat, but we're concerned later this evening about an escalating severe threat in that area. Now, the greatest tornado threat may be north of there, but we're kind of trending south with this. I want to see if forecasting has dropped an update to this map. I think that is our most recent. But there is a bit of a trend farther south. Here's our overall more comprehensive risk map. And again, there's kind of a trend that may be escalating for tornadoes south of I-44 and maybe even as far south as Mountain Home, Arkansas. That's up this way, and Jonesboro and Paragould and these areas here. Again, we can't sleep on this one. Make sure you have the AccuWeather app and a NOAA radio if you're going to go to bed tonight in Jonesboro. So those are the big short-term concerns. And again, Brandon Clement, he's in place in northeast Arkansas where, we may have the severe risk greatest to the north, but later tonight there is significant risk this evening. And there's Brandon's dash cam. Mel, do we have audio established yet? Okay, that's fine. Totally good. And you were being a little more informal with you. Sometimes we don't talk to the producer and the director as much when we're on the AccuWeather network, but in the interest of just being commercial free with YouTube Live, we get a lot done And there's also a lot of nonsense during the commercial breaks as well. But not as much with Mel. Producer Mel's very dialed in, but some other team members, we have a good time during the commercial breaks. But we also get a lot of logistical conversations out of the way in those times as well. And that is why we're being less formal with you when we're up here on our YouTube Live, because there is no true commercial break on YouTube when we're staying with you 4 hours commercial free. All right. So, that Broken Gamer guy says last year a tornado missed his house by a block. All right, so we want to know about a few other areas. People are wondering. Somebody asked about the significant tornado parameter. I'm going to bring that product up during a commercial break here. We're going to take you behind the curtain there. There is a risk of tornadoes in Rolla, not in the urgent short term, but there's Rolla there along I-44. We have our eye on you later this evening as these storms get closer from the west. Hillsborough, Missouri, Jefferson County, is there still bad weather coming our way? Well, anybody, is that Jefferson County? We're concerned about that whole area, basically from the current line of storms to the southeast. Jefferson County, Missouri, I don't have every county in the country memorized, but obviously this is south of St. Louis. We do have concerns about you. You are basically, I'm just going to be broad brush, anybody southeast of this line, including St. Louis and down to the south into Jefferson County, Missouri, through areas like Rolla, down to the Missouri Boot Heel later into the evening and at night. All these areas are at risk of severe weather. In the short term, though, we care about you where we have these ongoing tornado warnings as well. I'm going to bring up the high-res radar data out of St. Louis. We're going to look to the northern part of the scan here and bringing the reflectivity up there. You can see the nature of the heavy rain and where the rain is falling, and some hail is embedded within that. And this is what we would call a QLCS, quasi-linear convective system. Not a very conversational, public-friendly term, but it's basically a stripe of thunderstorms, and there are some tornado warnings embedded within this. Pike County, Missouri, Pike County, Illinois, Scott County, Illinois, Morgan County, Illinois, southern Cass County, and we're not seeing a long-lasting, persistent, nasty cell that's bringing a tornado threat. It's really the little kinks along the line where we have brief, transient tornado risks, and these can spin up and then spin back down in a matter of 2 or 3 minutes. They would generally be EF0s or EF1s, but they still are a concern. So those areas take shelter as this squall line moves through your area. All right, we are in a break now on the AccuWeather Network, and somebody asked about the significant tornado parameters, so I'm going to kind of geek out just for a moment. There are some weather model tools that give us a view of the atmosphere in different ways and help us to forecast. So here we have CAPE. This is convective available potential energy. And this is, remember, most of you know that warm air rises. If you have warm, humid air near the ground and this big bubble of it begins to rise and it's warmer than the surrounding air, it's going to continue to rise. That's buoyancy. So that's a look here at this the NAM model here. Pretty high octane fuel for storms, strong updrafts here. That was for a little earlier. Now we go into the evening, and you can see that moves a little farther east. Well, I want to bring up another product. This is the Energy Helicity Index. So here now we're looking at a combination of CAPE, but also, if you picture a football spiraling, trace where the laces go. It's kind of a spiraling motion. It's a product of wind shear in the low to mid levels of the atmosphere. Helicity, if you get spiraling motion and an updraft, you're going to begin to get a tornado to possibly form, or at least an area of rotation. So somebody asked about the energy, about the significant tornado parameter. I'm going to bring that up very briefly here. Can I find it? So many different products. I want to bring up the NAM. I want to do this quickly before we get back to the commercial break. Here's the significant tornado parameter. This is a look at, if we see tornadoes, how strong could they be? I'm going to bring up the 18Z. This is more recent data. And you know what? I will show this on the AccuWeather Network here. It's going to take a minute to load. Well, thanks for joining us here on the AccuWeather Network. We are taking a look at a few different things here with the severe weather setup that is ongoing with this setup here in southern Missouri, southern Illinois, western Kentucky, not yet, but eventually into northeast Arkansas. There is the risk for explosive thunderstorms in those areas. And we've been talking to some people on our YouTube live chat. Somebody was wondering about something called the significant tornado parameter. So this is a model view. And you know what? I could do better than this. I'm going to bring up this product for the South Central U.S. South Central U.S., and I think that's going to include enough of our area in question. This is a model look at this evening's risk of not just an EF0 or EF1, but potential for an EF2 plus, a stronger tornado. You'll notice it drops off hard after 2 a.m. or by 2 a.m. Here's a closer look at this product for this evening. And it does extend into south central parts of Illinois, mainly south of I-70. Zooming in, southeast Missouri, southern Illinois, parts of Arkansas, and then it drops off sharply. So that is, again, the area that we're concerned about. And this very much aligns with our severe weather forecast expert, Guy Pearson. He's concerned about areas near and south of I-44. So that's a big concern. And here's our official tornado risk map. And that would align and be a stronger argument for the southern half of this area for that significant tornado parameter. That's where the risk is. But again, we need to keep a close eye on things in that area. Also northeast Arkansas. That's where Brandon Clement is right now. In the short term, we're dealing with some squall line type thunderstorms into parts of western Illinois from sections of Morgan County down to Pike County, Missouri. And there are no confirmed tornadoes within this here. We just sent the AccuWeather network to a break when I paused there. No confirmed tornadoes, but there are little notches within this squall line where we could see a brief tornadic spin up. And that's the main concern there. Putting the whole puzzle back together, these storms are getting a little noisier down in southern Missouri. We talked about that cell that has been now warned east of the area of the eastern parts of McDonald County, Missouri, into parts of Barry County, Missouri. McDonald County into Barry County. So somebody asking if they're safe to leave their basement in Palmyra. And Jesse Farrell answering some of these questions here. What about Martin? Well, they have a tornado. I think they may mean tornado watch. All right. And I appreciate that some of these questions, I can't keep up with all the small town questions. But basically, if you're wondering about your location and what the tornado threat would be for you, just keep in mind the greatest risk here is going to be from I-44 and even north of I-44, kind of straying from that all the way northeast to areas like Springfield, Missouri, and then eastward to an area halfway between I-64 and I-70. Here's I-64, here's I-70. So I'm concerned about this area here, including St. Louis, down into areas like southern Illinois. To some extent, a lot of the biggest question marks are on the map in northeast Arkansas. That's where it's a conditional threat. If any storms do get going, they could be explosive, but there is a little layer of warmer air aloft for now, keeping those updrafts stifled at this point. I want to see if there are any reported tornadoes yet, and I don't see any yet here. A lot of this is radar indicated. I'm seeing some big hail, 3.5-inch diameter hail near Versailles in Morgan County, Missouri. That was a little earlier. Holy moly, that's big hail. So that's one big concern, the hail tied to this as well. Burlington, Iowa. Somebody was asking about Burlington, Iowa. I'm going to head farther north here. Burlington, the risk for you is not zero. In fact, you're going to hear some thunder here in a little bit. There's a developing storm basically over your head there in Burlington, Iowa. But the greater instability is farther south. There's even thunderstorm development all the way up, not just in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. There's thunderstorm development all the way northeast of Rochester, Minnesota, and up into parts of Wisconsin. Some of these storms are highly sheared, but there's less instability there. So there is some severe weather potential in those areas, but the greatest tornado threat that I'm concerned about, and that we're concerned about here, is generally into an area here near St. Louis, maybe as far north as Bloomington, Normal, Illinois, possibly as far north as Peoria, and point south. As we go back to this risk graphic here, this kind of answers some of those questions, and we're going to hit this with future radar in a moment as well. But here are your watches, tornado watches for many, till 9 p.m. Central, Champaign, Springfield, Effingham, until 11 p.m. Central down into southeast Missouri and northeast Arkansas, also western Tennessee, Jackson, Memphis. Severe thunderstorm watch down into parts of southwest Missouri, west of Springfield, Joplin, officially out of that except for the blocks below 32nd Street down into northern parts of Newton County, and then down obviously into northern parts of Arkansas near Eureka Springs as well. All right, thanks for joining us here on the AccuWeather Network. We're tracking severe weather. Look at all those watches, tornado watches, severe thunderstorm watches. The greatest risk is generally going to be in this area here. I'm circling from approximately I-44 southward. But in the short term, we got some noisy squalls moving through an area north of St. Louis. Some of these are bringing a brief tornado threat as well. Hey, we want to go to Reed Timmer's webcam. He's on the prowl near Goreville, Illinois. Extreme meteorologist Reed Timmer. He's been at it for a long time. He's got his PhD in meteorology and arguably the most famous Stormchaser in the world. I think he may be. I think he is. He's a great guy as well. But Reed is in Goreville, Illinois. And could I see his... There he is. Reed, are you with us audio-wise?
Yes, I'm with you. How's it going, Jeff?
I was just singing your praises, Reed. I didn't know if we just had your stream up, but how's it going today? You've had some wild moments in the past week. Every day, man, you do some amazing things. People run away from tornadoes. You put yourself right in them. Are you in the TIV today?
We're in the Dominator 3.
The Dominator 3. I got to get it right.
We were pulled out of the mud by the TIV the other day, but you can even see the tornado debris here wedged into the armor of the Dominator 3. So that was from our tornado intercept up near Rockdale, Illinois. And we've definitely been active, storm chasing nonstop. We had that tornado intercept in northern Oklahoma near Bremen, and saw a brief tornado yesterday. And we are in southern Illinois right now in the PDS tornado watch. So we have been chasing the prefrontal confluence line, and there have just been some bubbling showers on it all day today. A couple young storms, but they haven't been able to mature. They've been bubbling for a couple of hours, but just recently, in about the last half hour, we have some higher echo tops starting to show up to our southwest. I'm in Goreville, Illinois, and just to our southwest, there are some better towers. They might start to mature into supercell storms down there. It looks like there's a little bit more lift coming in aloft, and the sky's looking a little bit more favorable. You can see these updraft towers out here, cumulus field, and we definitely are getting some better tower cumulus out here as well. But I think that we might have a storm here shortly. If we don't from this next attempt, then these renegade supercells may fail to develop until after sunset. But we're watching that area just off to our southwest, and if they mature, they are in a volatile environment for strong to intense tornadoes, and we'll be ready to intercept them.
All right, well, Reed, hey, forgive me. I'm better than this. It's the Dominator 3, and I imagine you're not in a rush to remove the bark because that's like a badge of honor given what you do. We don't recommend what you do to anybody. Reed has a PhD in meteorology. He knows this stuff in a way that other chasers do not in many ways. You know, I have a chaser friend from Northern Ohio who's been doing this for like 40 years, and he tells me stories of plugging in a printer at a desktop computer at a monitor and running that phone line out to a convenience store and doing dial-up to print out. It's so much easier now than it used to be. But Reed, you've inspired a lot of people over the years, and what you do is pretty amazing. What's your biggest memory from the past week? What was the wildest encounter you had?
Boy, I would say it's a handful of them. We've had like 6 or 7 tornado intercepts being inside of the tornado with the Dominator, and we have an armored vehicle that's custom built to withstand those really powerful winds. and we were blown across the road about 2 feet, and we had to remove the spikes of the Dominator 3 after that tornado intercept. That was up in Rockdale, Illinois on April 17, and a couple of days before that, down in southern Minnesota, we were inside of a tornado there as well, and we're measuring wind data inside of these tornadoes. We experienced about 160-mile-an-hour winds in a few of those, and they were rated EF1, so I think it shows that these weaker tornadoes even can really pack big-time winds, especially when they get those suction vortices that they form. But we're just trying to launch sensors into tornadoes. We have a live streaming weather station on the roof, so we're going to try to measure the surface wind data inside of these tornadoes. But these are going to be fast-moving if they form down here in southern Illinois. But the Dominator's still ready to intercept. My door is broken here. That's why I'm still inside of it. I'm not going to be getting out of the Dominator probably for another 6 or 7 hours, but we're still ready to intercept. And we're just watching these towering cumulus down in southern Illinois to see if they mature into supercells.
Well, you're in good company. Wasn't the General Lee? I don't think you could open the doors of the General Lee, could you? I think you had to come in through the window, which is all right. Reed's a celebrity out there with this stuff. He has inspired so many chasers, and I don't know, it's fun. And when Reed yells, you know there's an exciting moment. Sometimes you're encountering the plug from flash flooding out in the desert Southwest. You got a knack for that as well. I think that's something, yeah, special place in your heart for that kind of event, I know.
I do, yeah. That's definitely a relaxing activity, end of summer, into fall. I like to run the front wall of those flash floods and wait for them and time them out in the desert and out in the Mountain West. But and even in the Texas Hill Country, they can have some devastating flash floods there. That usually happens around July and August. And there might be some flooding up here today, too. There's been a lot of training thunderstorms, just a lot of southwest and northeast movers. And so there definitely is a risk of flooding overnight tonight in this region, too. Not just strong to intense tornadoes, very large hail, but also flooding.
All right. Well, you can find Reed in so many places. And one of the places where you can often find some of his most amazing videos on AccuWeather.com and the AccuWeather app. And Reed, we appreciate all you do. You inspire a lot of people. And the Surgeon General would not recommend what you do. That is for sure. But,
do not attempt.
He's got an armored vehicle. He makes it look far easier than it is. So, Reed, be safe out there. We appreciate you.
All right. Thank you for having me. Never stop chasing.
All right. That's extreme meteorologist Dr. Reed Timmer there in the Dominator 3. The Dominator 3. He's got amazing stories. All right. Well, we want to take a look at what else is going on. Mel, what do we have, 4 or 5 minutes until the next break on the network. So we have J-Jack, you said? All right. Pat, let's go to Stormchaser Aaron J-Jack as well. And man, these guys have such tremendous stories. Mr. J-Jack often goes from the prairies of Canada to the Gulf Coast in a matter of a day, from chasing severe weather to ice storms, landfalling hurricanes. He's been at it for a long time as well. He's at the gas station there. And Aaron, where are you and what are you encountering? What are you expecting to encounter in the hours to come? We're having some connection issues there.
East off the Mississippi. Oh, let me get a little. Hold on a second.
No, we got you now. This is good.
How about now? You got me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I got too far from the Starlink there. But I've been watching this tower. Now it's going up just to my south here of Jonesboro, moving off to the east. A few more towers trying to bubble up. You can actually see them back here behind me. We're getting a little bit of rain here right now, but so far none of these. But, if we do get a storm, a supercell that forms here during the day, it's definitely going to be a dangerous storm. Produce all hazards, large hail, and definitely could produce some tornadoes and even some strong tornadoes. We are in this PDS tornado watch here this evening here in southern Illinois. So I think we'll likely get a storm of the fire here over the next hour, if not this cell right here. But even after dark, this if we don't get anything firing during the day, even a more dangerous event could happen after dark. If those supercells do form, much more dangerous at night when you can't see them coming. So definitely, if you're in the path tonight in southern Illinois, southern Missouri, if you get that warning for tornado, definitely take precaution. Back to you, Jeff.
All right, good stuff, Aaron. Be safe out there. It's going to be a volatile setup here as these storms gain a little more traction, and we're beginning to see a pretty unified series of discrete. They're not attached to one another yet, but some nasty storms off to the west from Columbia and Jefferson City all the way down into Stone and Taney counties of Missouri, down into an area near the northern part of the Ozark Plateau. So here's Barry County, there's Stone, and southeastern parts of McDonald County still under a severe thunderstorm warning. But these are nasty storms. One that's had my eye has been the one exiting eastern Greene County. That's home to Springfield. And as we go back to the high-res radar data, you know, it's kind of outrunning the others. It has the shape of a supercell. You can kind of see there's a little bit of a, well, you can see a little notch and a hook. I'm kind of tracing this generally backwards, but again, there's an area where we're beginning to see some rotation form. Growing a little more concerned about this area for a possible tornado. And when we switch over to the velocity scan, you can see it's not terribly strong. And when we take a look at the, I want to zoom out, because to interpret the radar data properly, we got to know where the radar site is. So the radar site's one county to our west. We're dealing with some outbound wind here and some strong inbound. So again, we're just beginning to see a little bit of a couplet. Weather Service in Springfield not yet issuing a tornado warning for this, but it's a zone of potential concern. And we are facing some severe thunderstorms tied to this there. Webster County into Wright County. Wright, you got a moment, but I wouldn't sleep on this one. Again, we have a nasty storm approaching your way. And then also a pretty nasty little hook here into Laclede County of Missouri. No tornado warning on it yet, but again, the environment is right for some of these to begin to rotate, especially as they get a little farther east. The only tornado warning on the map right now is into an area here north of St. Louis. And just for perspective, I'm zooming in and out. And forgive me, I don't want to make anybody seasick, but this is about 75 miles from the radar site. So we're hitting this several thousand feet up into the atmosphere. And this has been embedded within a squall line. But there are some areas here where there's a little bit of an enhanced outbound versus inbound. And these are not going to be sustained, long-lasting tornadoes, but they could be brief spin-ups here, little kinks along the ragged squall line here where we have some concerns about the possibility of, another tornado spin-up or two in these areas. So that's Morgan County, Illinois, southeastern parts of Cass County, Illinois, eastern Scott County, Illinois, where we have an ongoing tornado threat. So there is a new tornado warning issued for that primary couplet, if you want to call it a couplet here to the north. It's embedded within a squall line. And switching back over to the reflectivity, this you can even see the structure of the reflectivity is beginning to it's reflecting a little bit of an east push on the south side. So there is some rotation here, and I like this warning as a well-issued tornado warning here. It's a bit more focused from the squall line than some of the other broad brush ones. It's a more specific risk in this area, so I would certainly take shelter if I were in northwestern or western Sangamon County of Illinois and southern Menard County of Illinois as well. This is the area of the Springfield, Illinois radar site area. We have several options. We're getting a pretty reasonable view of this one regardless from the St. Louis radar site. I want to see if we can afford to drop one of our high-res radars and bring that one in. And, Memphis is such a sleeper right now. There's nothing going on in Memphis yet. I'm just going to, as we're in our commercial break here, I'm going to put in a request to Kayla Schuster. She's great. She's fantastic. She's one of our meteorologists and also graphics specialist. And I'm just going to ask that she swap out ILX, Central Illinois, in place of Memphis. Thank you guys for being patient here. This is what we typically do during a commercial break, along with some other nonsensical things that we say to each other in the control room. It's very entertaining. Huh? You can't do that. All right. I'm just checking out the chat here. Jacksonville, Illinois, tornado warning right now for, I don't want to overspeak. Somebody says they're in a tornado right now. Jacksonville, Illinois here. All right, so I'm going to switch over to the high-res somebody asking, and again, this is kind of a priority question because they're in the tornado warning. We have a few different tornado warnings right now. Specifically in Jacksonville, I think the risk is mainly to your east, but I would stay in your shelter at this point. So stay in your shelter there. Because this is a chaotic squall line, and several of these little kinks are perhaps cause for a brief tornadic spin up. The one that is most likely to be producing right now is south of Ashland, which is east of you in Jacksonville. But eastern Morgan County, Illinois, and western Sangamon County, tornado threat for you, and then also up in Menard County, Illinois, as well. And when I get the opportunity, I want to see if ILX is in. Very nice. I'm going to swap out. Yeah, thank you. That's great. I'm just changing one of these. I'm going to be able to show you much better radar data here in a minute once it loads. Thank you, Kayla. Springfield, Illinois. As we bring you kind of behind the curtain, I'm just reorganizing one of these radar sites. It's like we have 6 spots in the batting order, and we have to, there we are. So there's the first bit of radar data coming in from Springfield. So the source of this data is going to be much closer. 40 miles from the one cell, 21 from the other. This is going to be much preferred over using the St. Louis site. And the AccuWeather Network is going to rejoin us, then I'll get into that. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network as we continue to track a tornado threat across parts of Illinois in the short term and increasingly southern Missouri, even northeast Arkansas, southern Illinois later on. But we have a couple of cells along a ragged squall line, and these little notches here are, now we call these QLCS tornadoes, quasi-linear convective system tornadoes. And this is the type of setup that maybe a little more like what those of you in the Northeast tend to face. They're not supercells. They are brief spin-ups within squall lines. Before I switch over to the high-res velocity data, we're looking at high-res reflectivity data. And I just wanted to point out some sharp kinks here along the line. And you can see a couple of kinks along the line. These are areas where along the squall line, not every part of the squall line has an equal risk of a tornado. It's those kinks where we have the greatest threat. And we can switch over to the velocity scan. And this is showing us the Doppler effect at play, where parts of the storm are moving more rapidly toward the radar site and parts are moving away from the radar site. Sometimes one part of the radar, one aspect of radar data is a better tool than others. And I'm concerned about this area here near Greenview, risk of a possible tornado there. I'm going to see how that aligns with the... so I think the little impetus for this, the argument here from a velocity data standpoint, is that little spike in the brighter red. This isn't a whole lot to work with there. But what is a little more helpful is the velocity, is the reflectivity scan showing, again, perhaps a push this way here with the bulge of that storm. A risk of a tornado is limited. A brief tornadic spin up into Menard County and Logan County, Illinois, far southeastern Mason County, Illinois as well. We're looking again at an area approaching Lincoln from the west. Here's a more obvious scan that shows kind of this, you can almost picture like a pinwheel situation here. And I'm just going to try to, suggest where this is. We're looking at this area of rotation in Sangamon County. And as we go to the velocity scan, you can see, again, it's kind of scrappy looking. This can just show us if something is moving toward or away from the radar site. So it's almost like one-dimensional. Is it moving in that way or in that way? So there you can see that it's not a couplet that you might expect to see with a supercell, but there's strong outbound wind on the north side with respect to the storm motion, and that is signaling the risk of a tornado here that aligns pretty well with this swirl that you're seeing on the reflectivity where it's raining. So again, Sangamon County, possible tornado approaching Springfield. We're getting into Lincoln, Illinois and Springfield, Illinois that are more populated areas. And then heading a little farther south, we want to head to one of our storm chasers here. Storm chaser Aaron Rigsby joining us now live from Anna, Illinois. And Aaron, how's it going? What are you experiencing where you are there in Anna?
Yeah, good evening, Jeff. Well, right now, it's almost like an ominous calm before the storm. And honestly, from what we were expecting a few hours ago, things have really been kind of underwhelming here, which is good news because I cannot describe how volatile the atmosphere in this warm sector truly is that is across southeast Missouri and into southern Illinois and even portions to northeast Arkansas. So right now, we've actually seen some towers, which is basically those cumulus clouds that start to blossom to life and eventually turn into potential supercells. We kind of had a few form earlier, but kind of flopped over and died out, but we're watching some rejuvenation again. So it's really crucial to the folks that live in this area, especially across the tornado watch with the PDS, particularly dangerous situation area, to not let their guard down. Just because there aren't any storms yet does not mean that they will not fire up here within the next hour or two, or potentially into the overnight hours. We see this time and time again with these storm systems where the timing might be a little bit off, or the trough might not dig quite as deep or quite as soon as what we were previously anticipated. And even sometimes from a chasing perspective, we thought the day was over and it was going to underperform. And then all of a sudden storms ignited, went up, and produced tornadoes later, which could be the case today as the evening progresses.
And Aaron, I have the high-res level 2 radar up from Paducah, so it's giving us a pretty good view of some of these little, you mentioned convective towers in the neighborhood, kind of pooling pretty quickly to the northeast. But the environment to your west is largely untapped, so I understand why you are where you are. Much of southern Missouri, lots of very high humidity. Dew points have been up the upper 60s. We got the low-level jet that'll be ramping up eventually as well. And just be careful as you're out and about. I know you've been doing this for a long time. Aaron and I have known each other for, 12, 13 years since you were just getting started chasing in Ohio. And your career has taken you to some amazing places. Aaron, what's the biggest takeaway from your chase season so far this year?
Well, I'll tell you what, Jeff, I've been chasing storms 15 years, and I have never documented the amount of tornadoes that I have by late April in my entire chasing career. I mean, really, we have been just 23, and each year I have been documenting more and more tornadoes. And just when you think that it's going to shut off, we're even kind of joking around amongst ourselves that 2026 isn't going to live up to the expectations of 2023, 2024, and 2025. And here we are already in late April. And I tell you what, Jeff, in the month of April alone, I've documented over 20 tornadoes across the country. For some perspective on that, I mean, we're talking about records being shattered. I mean, as far north as Minnesota, Jeff, that's typically a place that I chase in June, not in early to mid-April. And it just seems like every one of these setups that come through here are producing tornadoes to some degree. And in some cases over the last several days, multiple instances of twin tornadoes with two tornadoes on the ground at the same time. So it's just been an unbelievably active pattern that we've been in. And going into the month of May, Jeff, I tell you what, it's probably not going to shut off at least for that first week or two of May as well.
I agree, Aaron, and there are some side benefits that may come eventually as the pattern evolves. The southeast gets a little more rain, but man, there's a high price to all this with the severe weather potential, and again, the storms that you capture by video, just amazing. So we appreciate all you do. Aaron Rigsby does amazing work, tremendous just resume of tornado after tornado, even this year to get 20 this early in the season here. It's pretty amazing. So, Aaron, be safe out there. Thanks again for all you do in Southwest Illinois. All right, Aaron's often putting lots of miles on, but he's in Anna, Illinois right now. We're going to be right back here on the AccuWeather Network. All right. Thanks for being with us here on our YouTube Live, and we just continue to track numerous severe storms in various areas. The greatest, most imminent tornado threat right now remains up into Illinois, central Illinois. We're waiting. We're still kind of in a holding pattern. Most of the chasers are in a position where they're not yet chasing individual cells, but they are in place, waiting for development. And as we look at the high-res radar data out of Springfield, Illinois, we just changed the radar site during our last break. So we only have 3 frames in so far. But it's given us a close, really close view here because from the one cell to the radar site, 21 miles. And then we can go a little farther southwest. And again, we're getting a nice up-close view of these storms from this radar site. Switching over to the velocity scan. I just want to make sure we're not missing anything with this here. I'm going to turn the ruler off. So right now, 3 tornado warnings, arguably for 2 risk areas. The velocity scans Well, here we have near Berlin and New Berlin, Illinois. You can see a little hint of a couplet, but sometimes with these linear bands of thunderstorms, the most instructive thing we could do is bring up the reflectivity, and this shows us little kinks along the way. So again, there is a risk there near Berlin and New Berlin. As I scrub back, we had the motivation for this tornado warning was really this area here near Berlin. We may have a brief couplet forming to the south, perhaps this little nub, this little nodule between Berlin and New Berlin, but the risk is limited with that, I would say. And then to the north here, another look at the velocity scan. And again, that's not very instructive, but when we look at the possible notches here, I'm going to scrub back, and the AccuWeather Network's going to be right back here with us as well. So thanks for joining us here on the AccuWeather Network. We're tracking some tornado threats, and I'm just scrubbing back and forth through the data here. A little bit ago, what time would this be? This would be 6:43, 6:44. 10 minutes ago, we had the hint of, again, some rotation here along a ragged squall line. And as this has evolved the past 10 minutes, it's a good trend. You can see that little conch shell shape, it's kind of filling in a little bit. And when we look at the velocity scan, we are in the area west of Lincoln, Illinois, Menard County into Logan County. The risk of a tornado here is limited. It's not zero. It's not zero. I would take shelter. This tornado warning is still with us for about 21 more minutes, but the risk is limited. Similarly to the south, the risk is present near Berlin and New Berlin. There's a small risk of a tornado here in Sangamon County of Illinois, west of Springfield. I would say if we were to characterize this tornado threat compared to others, it's on the lower end of the tornado threat, specifically these two cells, because they're going to be embedded within a squall line, so there'd probably be an EF0 if it briefly touched down. But the main widespread concern you're going to get is a lot of lightning, a lot of heavy rain, and straight line winds with this cell, with a couple of brief tornadic spin-ups possible. Similar story down into Jacksonville. Some of you were asking about some of these communities here, and as we go to the velocity scan here you can see a little bit of a tighter contrast between the outbound and inbound. Now again, that's actually, if that were at face value, maybe there's a tornado down this way, but it's not a very obvious sign. And here there's a little hint of eastbound movement. So perhaps an isolated tornado here just south of Morgan County, Illinois, on the southern end of the county. We just went to break there on the AccuWeather Network. Those are a few of the tornado threats that we're facing right now. But bigger picture, there's a different character to these possible tornadoes to the north. Here's the view. Let's take a look at this here from the St. Louis perspective. There's a different nature to these brief tornadic spin-ups embedded within a squall line. Areas west of Lincoln, west of Springfield, Illinois, and north of Whitehall into Morgan County, Illinois. Those would be brief tornadic spin-ups. The greater threat is going to be with storms that have yet to really get going farther south. Well, the storms are getting going, I should say. Some of these guys out moving through parts of southern Missouri and the northern part of the Ozark Plateau near Interstate 44. Those are going to be entering an environment where they could really begin to spin up. And you'll notice the storm chasers we've been talking to, a lot of them are generally down this way. So we're not yet in a spot, even south of Jonesboro, Brandon Clement. So again, there's potential into Arkansas as well. But the storm chasers are in position waiting for trouble. And the storms to the north are more aligned with more like a northeastern U.S. brief tornadic spin-up. I want to see, I don't want to miss anything here. I can't answer all of your questions. Jesse Farrell, the Weather Matrix, is answering some of your questions on the chat, and I appreciate that. People wondering if Jefferson City will be okay. The trend is good in that the worst of the storms are east of you. So the risk is still present near Jefferson City and points east, but it's mainly Osage County, Missouri, and less to the west into Jefferson City proper. So I'm reluctant to say with total certainty that you're totally done, because you'll notice there is some convection to the north. and part of that squall line here. Again, we may see more development to the south, but the atmosphere's been worked over there. So there's even storm activity as far north as western Wisconsin. But the greatest threat is farther south, for sure. And the fact that this storm that moved through Jefferson City in the past 40 minutes or so has moved through, the risk is decreasing. We've had some big hail out there to the west. Look at that. 3-inch diameter hail near either Versailles or, as they would say in France, Versailles. My sense is you may call it Versailles. I don't know. It's a town in Kentucky, which is west of Lexington with the same name. They say Versailles there. 3-inch diameter hail. I've never seen 3-inch diameter hail with my own eyes. And a lot of us will live our whole lives and never see such a thing. But that's what has happened in Morgan County. So that's been the biggest threat. But the severe threat is decreasing, specifically in Jefferson City if your feet are in the city limits. Still very significant to the east into Osage County, Missouri. Yeah, we don't want you to live in fear. A lot of you guys have some severe weather fears, and I understand that. You know, this is a tough time of the year to be in Tornado Alley and parts of the plains, but it is a fact of life here. For centuries and centuries, this is the way it's been this time of the year in these areas. Oh, I missed Aaron J. Jack had a rainbow in his feed a second ago. Sorry, I missed that there. According to Jessica Rabbit on the YouTube Live. Yes, Springfield, Illinois, population 113,000 there. Populated areas here where we're facing the severe weather risk. So far, according to Jesse Farrell, the Weather Matrix, 141 severe thunderstorm warnings. Tornado warnings have counted 24. He has counted so far. So active day here in progress. Very active day in progress here. I was just mentioning to the YouTube Live as you rejoin us here on the AccuWeather Network here at 7 Eastern, 6 Central. So far, 141 severe thunderstorm warnings and 24 tornado warnings so far. And some of these storms in the I-44 area are nasty. A trail of wind damage moving through the Springfield area earlier. Large tree down in Republic, Missouri. Here we have a 67-mile-per-hour wind gust in Republic on West Elm. Several trees down, 2 on houses. Then we had in Battlefield power lines down. We're going to bring up the power outages again. Rogersville, Missouri, 3-foot diameter tree down. And even going farther west into Reeds, Missouri there in Jasper County. Spent 2 years living in Jasper County. And Carl Junction down in Diamond in Newton County. Diamond fire units out on trees down on J Highway east of Diamond. In Diamond itself there, more of that. That's not far from the George Washington Carver home that you can, a cool place to check out. And then reports of trees onto homes in Monette, Missouri, in Barry County, south of Interstate 44, 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. That's Barry County there in Monette. Plot comes up in Lawrence County, really south of there is where it actually occurred. Maybe if I could tilt this down there, you could see a little more accurately. So that's what we're dealing with some of those nasty storms. And I mentioned the winds have been producing power outages. And here we are. Now we got Missouri on the list. 12,500 addresses without power. Indiana, 75,000 addresses in the dark. Michigan never disappoints, unfortunately, with addresses without power. 92,000 addresses. And I say it that way, which is not very conversational because it's not the number of people. This is not the number of people. This is actually the number of addresses in the dark. The number of electric meters not spinning. So overall, if you add these up here, we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of people, maybe 300,000-400,000 people facing no electricity right now. And overall, forgive me flashing different images up. I brought this up when Reed was talking about some of his storms of the other day. Now I think we're up to 81 confirmed tornadoes from Friday, April 17th, a week and a half ago. They've still been surveying the damage even at a late last week. So here's tonight's risk area. We are facing an ongoing threat of tornadoes, large hail, downpours, and fierce straight-line winds. We want to take a look at what's going on with the help of AccuWeather meteorologist and Stormchaser Tony Lawback joining us now live from Carbondale, Illinois. Tony, you're not the first meteorologist I've worked with who went to school at Southern Illinois University. John James, I worked with him in Kentucky. He used to call it Carbondale. Is that an inside joke there?
I think it is for him. I never called it that for sure. Right. But proud Saluki. Always great to be back. The problem is My friends and local residents here, obviously they remember me as the weather warrior at my time here, and they always know when Tony's coming to town, bad things tend to happen. So unfortunately, while I'm very, very welcome, they wish it were under different circumstances. But we're going to have a little science fun here, because obviously we're all waiting around here. And this, I think, tells a really good story behind me here. I want to show you two different pieces here. First, we're going to talk about this guy right over my shoulder. A little bit crisper. You see that push that's kind of up there a little bit. You see the definition in the clouds a little bit there. That is kind of the push, the updraft that's really trying to get going with this cell. And then you look over here, kind of in the middle, and you see it's a little bit more soft, a little bit less puffy, kind of behind that. That is hitting a cap. And if you can bear with me here, since we're kind of informal, we're going to move this so I can do this a little bit better here. You don't have to look up my nose. But what I got here is a bottle of water. So let's pretend the water in this are the clouds. So what you're looking at here is the clouds. We talk about a cap. This is literally what this is on the bottle right now. Those storms are pushing up into an area that is warmer. So this is cold water. This cap is warm. You cannot get that cold air to rise up through an area that's hotter above. So what happens is you get a lid. So if I push this bottle, nothing comes out. Now, what we're waiting to have happen right now is we're waiting for the cap to go away. It's not a big cap right now, but it is enough to where if you get that energy that can push through that, the cap breaks. And that is what we're essentially waiting for right now, is for that cap to break. I've been talking with some of the meteorologists at the National Weather Service office in Paducah here, who fortunately remember me, and we've been kind of chatting back and forth, talking about some of the soundings and some of the radar indications as to what's going on above here. And we talk about that temperature difference right now. The cap is less than 1 degree Celsius, so it's not a huge cap right now. But as you mentioned, we were talking to Guy Pearson. He was talking about that energy that we're waiting for. So it's kind of that combination right now. There's just not enough energy to get those storms to push up through that cap, despite it being a smaller one. But as we were talking about, as that energy starts to work its way in, that upper level dynamics, those jet streaks, those areas of enhanced wind well above the surface, when those start to hit in here, we will start to see these storms erode that cap. The question is going to be just exactly, Geoff, when that is going to be. It could be in the next hour, it could be in the next 2 hours. We could be talking about a totally nighttime event down here, which obviously adds even bigger issues. So we're hoping here as the sun goes down that this remains the site. Just kind of clouds that get up and don't quite do anything. In fact, here, we're going to show you one more thing here. We're going to adjust the camera, because remember that updraft I was talking about right there. Look how it's softened up now. It has got up against that lid, so it doesn't quite have the push. The lower areas of clouds are kind of crispy, cauliflower looking. But once they get up a little bit and they hit that cap, they start to soften up. That is what we're seeing in real time here. And I am seeing more water out of that bottle than I have rain here today. So I'll toss it back to you, because I need a towel.
All right, the Professor Tony Lawback. That's good stuff. Very like science class, meteorology, thermodynamics 101 there. Good hands-on illustration, Tony. Good stuff. Thank you. And it's really good illustration of what's going on. So this little warm layer upstairs, keeping these in check for now. And then one thing that facilitates change at night, I think a lot of people who move from the East Coast to the plains are like, the sun's set now, we're getting storms. What's the deal with that? The low-level jet, the winds about 5,000 feet up into the atmosphere, they're going to be ramping up here. And this is something that accelerates this process of warming aloft that's totally removed from the rise and fall of the sun every day. You know, at the ground, we warm up and we heat up the most in the mid to late afternoon due to the cumulative hours of sunshine, strong solar energy coming in. Sun sets, and then the storms fire off in some parts of the plains due to a few different processes. But one of them is the low-level jet. So here we are, about 850 millibars, and those bright colors, or the darker colors, actually, to be honest with you, those are signatures here of strong wind here into the night that are going to be driving high moisture content and warm air just over the surface. You can get storms to form through processes of warmth and humidity on the ground, or that can happen if you're a few thousand feet up, and it could be slightly elevated convection. But if you still get this contrast of warm and humid under, much colder aloft, that warm and humid near the ground can sometimes be a mile up, and that still will get these updrafts going in a big way. So that's our concern here tonight. And by the way, there's no shortage of moisture in this area, with moisture streaming northward. Dew point is 73. That's like tropical air. I haven't experienced that yet this spring here in central Pennsylvania near the AccuWeather headquarters, but some of you are in it right now, and that's going to be high-octane fuel. So many of you are wondering in the YouTube chat, what do the storms look like for my area? I'm just scanning through our graphics. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything with the latest drop. And this is our latest version of our assessment of the severe weather potential this evening and tonight. And there are storms as far north as Wisconsin that have been severe, but the greatest risk is closer to that I-70 latitude and points south especially. So the ongoing watches here, we have severe thunderstorm and tornado watches in red. And let's take a look at the future radar. I'm going to press pause on this here deeper into the night. And around 11 p.m., some of these storms are going to be nasty, and these will be fueled by that low-level jet, those strong winds a mile up in the atmosphere. And that's going to get these storms really going and sustaining them. Some of you are asking about Ohio, and forgive me for not being able to answer all of your individual questions here in the chat. But you can also check out the AccuWeather app and type in your location, or just say find my location based on your GPS signal or the Wi-Fi that you may be connected to. Make sure it's giving you the right town. Sometimes Wi-Fi can direct you to a different town, maybe dozens of miles away. But overall, that will give you the minute-cast feature that will show you the arrival time of rain and the intensity of that rain for your area. But you can see in Ohio, we're dealing with strong rounds of rain and some gusty wind, but the storms are going to be in decline by the time they roll in later tonight. Now, tomorrow, we have big concerns farther south. As the front kind of shoves farther south here, we're going to be dealing with severe weather possible. Dallas, Little Rock, Jonesboro, Greenville, Mississippi, and in between. Let's get back to radar, though. We don't want to spend too much time away from radar. I'm going to get rid of the lightning, taking a look at some new warnings. New tornado warning here in effect for Jerseyville, Illinois. And as we switch over to the high-res radar data out of Springfield, Missouri, out of St. Louis, Missouri, I should say, we can show you the velocity scan that's motivating this warning, and there it is. So again, we have an area of rotation here that is developing in this area. I'm just kind of scrubbing this back and forth. So the main driver behind this, I think, is this storm very close to Mendota. So we got some nasty radar contamination here, but again, the risk is present in some of these areas near Jerseyville. So we got to keep a close eye out for that in parts of Jersey and Macoupin County, Illinois. So we're clear. The AccuWeather network just went to a commercial break, and I'm just scanning north. 2 tornado warnings at the moment. Looks like 1 now at the moment. Waiting for one of these to drop off. We just hit what? So I'm noticing that one of the sources I'm using is suggesting that this northern warning may have been allowed to expire. And we may see that just in a matter of a few seconds here as the data updates that. I think this one is being canceled early near Lincoln. But the tornado warning that continues is into Jerseyville with that newer cell. Centralia, Illinois, under a tornado watch. Thanks for joining us here, Doug Cunningham, on the chat. We are tracking ongoing severe weather, and the threat is escalating this evening near and south of Interstate 70. I'm going to put the puzzle back together, all the National Weather Service radar sites together, and this gives you kind of the more comprehensive view. And there are severe storms, at least at times today, as far north as Wisconsin. At the moment, none of them are severe up there north of La Crosse, but they're pretty aggressive storms even to the north. Now, these to the north are being driven by high dynamics. The winds aloft are screaming, and that can get the storms forming with limited instability. There's not a whole lot of warmth and instability there, but farther south, we're dealing with a more unstable environment. And then you go far enough south of Missouri, we're dealing with an environment down this way near Jonesboro and Cape Girardeau and Carbondale and Harrisburg, Illinois, Mount Vernon, some of these areas where we have a lot of potential for storms, but the storms have yet to fire off. So the chasers are in place, and they're getting ready for what they expect and what we expect to be a dangerous evening there. But again, the storms have yet to really get going. down that far. So it does appear that we're going to see this northern warning drop off, and it may be the way that the warning has been canceled. There could be some data baked into the header there, the text programming, that it may not drop off until 15 after the hour here north of Springfield, but that tornado warning has been allowed to expire to the north. So again, we can cross that off our list. We still have this one down into Jersey County, north of St. Louis in Illinois. That's a big concern at this point. All right, somebody asking what the Cape levels are and predictions for Mayfield, Kentucky. Mayfield, we have concerns about you late tonight. I can show you the Cape. Somebody asking about the Cape. This is convective available potential energy. I'm going to refresh this, so bear with me. I want to give you the 18Z data. This is the absolute latest here. I'm going to go to severe weather. I'm using AccuWeather Professional right now, which is it's our internal model browser. But anybody who subscribes to AccuWeather Pro also gets access to this as well. Here's the most unstable Cape. So this is going to pick the altitude that sparks the strongest updraft potential. And, I want to wait for the NAM to load. I'm just going to wait for that. It's coming in here because it's a convective model that can produce, it can resolve features of a smaller detail. You can see in a couple of specks of northern Arkansas, we have Cape around 4,500 plus joules per kilogram. So there's like 93 octane fuel there. But there's also a lid. There's an intervening layer of warmth aloft, and we haven't broken that cap yet. Where the storms are very aggressive right now, we've been seeing a Cape of 3,000 to 4,000 joules per kilogram in parts of Missouri. So that's been fueling a lot of the storms there. And it's a little more modest as we get into parts of southern Illinois at this point. Thanks for joining us here on the AccuWeather Network. I was just chatting with some people here on our YouTube Live, looking at some parameters like Cape, the updraft fuel for these storms here in the Mississippi Valley. We're dealing with drought in some areas there. Lexington, Kentucky, we're hearing from you there. I spent 4 years in Lexington, and you could use some rain. It looks like, now, it seems like this is a person who's a fan of storms. And they actually want a strong storm. You know, from the perspective of rooting for humanity here, we want rain in Lexington, but we don't want actual severe weather. These storms likely will be in decline as they move into the Bluegrass region. Now, with that said, there's a strong storm up near Boone and Kenton counties of Kentucky into areas like Owen and Grant, moving into Pendleton County. Not quite severe there north of Sadieville, Kentucky, and northwest of there, but you're going to get clipped by that north of Georgetown, well north of Lexington there, between maybe mile marker 140 plus, maybe 140 plus north of the Toyota plant up in Scott County and beyond. But as we get into the area near Louisville, we do have a severe storm up in areas close to New Albany, Indiana, the northern suburbs of Louisville. Floyd County, here we can zoom in here. There's New Albany. So it's a little bit north of New Albany into areas near Floyd and Clark County, Indiana. Severe storm moving right through Sellersburg. Look out along Interstate 65. This could be a bad spot for semi-trucks to be traveling north-south with a fierce wind coming in from west to east there north of Louisville, north of the bridge. So let's go to Aaron Rigsby. We want to take a look at what we're seeing from Aaron Rigsby's perspective. He was down in Anna, Illinois. I'm going to zoom in on that area and bring up the high-res radar data. How's it going, Aaron? Are you still in Anna at this point?
Yeah, good evening, Jeff. So right now we actually repositioned to Marion, Illinois, and we're heading eastbound toward Harrisburg to get ahead of this storm that's kind of blossoming to life over by Eddyville. This storm's heading generally off to the northeast direction, but these are those warm air advection storms that we were closely monitoring. So if any of the storms today are going to be capable of producing that strong tornado potential, it's going to be these little blips popping up in southern Illinois that are tracking off to the northeast. But as of right now, Jeff, and this is good news, everything has still been pretty under control. We haven't had anything, all these updrafts really go up and be able to sustain themselves. So for now, they have been suppressed. But like we said, that PDS, particularly dangerous ditch tornado watch, is there for a reason. It's there for several more hours for a reason. And as a storm chaser, there have been plenty of times where I thought the day was going to underperform, and all it takes is one or two storms to quickly blossom to life and take advantage of that volatile atmosphere that's in place across the Midwest today.
All right, Aaron, I just plotted your chart here on the radar, and we can see where you're moving through Marion, eastbound into Harrisburg, and we're tracking that scrappy cell racing northeast. So we need to keep a close eye on this one and others in this highly sheared environment. Aaron, thanks for that report. We'll look forward to checking in with you some more in just a bit. We do want to take you farther north to the ongoing tornado threat. Somebody just asking about Dry Ridge, Kentucky. You're going to be clipped by a non-severe cell there fairly soon with that storm coming in from your west along Interstate 75. And overall, let's get back down into the ongoing tornado threat. Only tornado warning in town right now. In fact, in the whole nation is this one from Jersey County, Illinois, into areas near Carlinville. I'm going to bring up the high-res radar data out of St. Louis. We're looking at this one from a pretty reasonable short distance, 30 miles or so. So we're looking at this maybe a mile, maybe 1,000, 1,500 feet up into the atmosphere, probably between 1,000 and 2,000 feet up into the atmosphere. I haven't done the full calculation, but it's something close to that estimating. And the velocity scan still showing something pretty nasty here. There's some strong inbound wind on the north side. The concern is, I'm going to show you here, this area, right over Shipman. You can see the red. Think of taillights. That's where there's motion away from the radar site. And I want to draw these vectors a little more precisely. You can see the radar site's down here. We call it the St. Louis radar site. It's really south of O'Fallon, more precisely. And as I mouse wheel back in here, the precise movement that we're seeing through radar is this. And when we look at the scan, we can see that there's pretty fierce inbound wind, 78 mile per hour in one direction, about 13 in the other. Now, this is not actually the straight up wind speed in this area. It's actually the storm relative motion. So it's doing something that computers can do really well. It's taking the storm motion and subtracting that out of the equation. So it gives us the relative motion within the storm, which is very helpful when we're trying to assess, is this thing rotating or not? Because you can get rotation, but the whole storm is moving east or northeast at 45 miles per hour. We do have a new tornado warning here that I want to show you. But that's showing us it's about a 91 mile per hour gate-to-gate contrast, one side of the storm to the other. That's the conflict in the winds, outbound, inbound, and that means obviously strong rotation between Piazza and Shipman moving into Plainview, McAlpin, and this is exiting the area of Jersey County. If you're in eastern Jersey County, east of Jerseyville, stay in your shelter, give it a little more time. I wouldn't jump out of your shelter yet because there's still possibly a tornado on your doorstep, but it's just off to the east. Hey, we want to go farther north. There is a new tornado warning to talk about as well. We're going to take you up into the area near this Springfield, Illinois radar site. This is going to give us a great set of eyes on this one. And as I bring up the velocity scan, bringing up the velocity scan is nice because it really highlights where the radar site is very clearly. And this is giving us a great view of this one, 8 miles away. So we're only looking at this hundreds of feet above the ground. Low-level scan. This is a low-level scan, and we care most about what goes on at ground level. So, again, this is where you live, near Mount Pulaski. And we have a strong zone of rotation here in this area, embedded within a squall line. So Mount Pulaski to Bakerville, the risk of a tornado is on the map here for you. This is Logan County, Illinois, into southwestern DeWitt County and northwestern Macon County of Illinois. A new developing tornado threat in this area. Brand new tornado warning issued. And look at this pretty compelling image there. On the reflectivity, it's kind of like a little cinnamon bun there that aligns very well, unfortunately, with the area of rotation. During the commercial break here, when we're still with you on YouTube Live, we're going to see if we can find any debris in the atmosphere in just a few seconds. All right, the network just went to a break here, and I'm going to bring up something that looks a little wild. The correlation coefficient, and this looks like total nonsense, doesn't it? It's a whole bunch of different colors. This is showing us if the radar is seeing stuff that's all the same size and shape or not. If you're dealing with rain, you're going to get a high. This is for your math and science people out there. High correlation coefficient. The radar is bouncing off of stuff that has a high correlation coefficient. If you have a coefficient of 1 and you're doing some math, you can multiply by 1, and what do you get? You get the same number that you started with. So basically, it's a sign that the correlation coefficient is 1 and the radar is showing all the same stuff. If you begin to get down into these lower values, the blues and so forth, you get down into a lower correlation coefficient. In other words, the radar stuff, the radar site, the radar pulses are bouncing off of things that don't correlate with one another all that well, and you're seeing things of different sizes and shapes. Sometimes that's helpful determining rain from snow. Sometimes it can show us where the hail is located. Again, I've been on this graphic for a few, maybe longer than I should be. There is your area of possible rotation. Do we find any meaningful correlation coefficient there just north of Pulaski? The answer is really no. Not obvious. Not obvious. Now here's the new scan. This just drifted there. North of the K and south of the B. In our labels there. I'm just training my eye on that. So it's possible, it is possible that there could be a slight bit of continuity between a few of these little dropouts, something that tracked through that area. Perhaps a little bit of debris being lifted into the atmosphere. Not an obvious, compelling sign, though. But again, small chance that there could be a tornado threat still continuing into Bakerville. So we are tracking an ongoing risk of a tornado in Bakerville, Illinois. And we were just looking at something called the correlation coefficient. And if you were curious what we're talking about here, we're seeing if the radar is finding debris in the atmosphere. And we were just kind of debating, is this little zone, that little drop out there. Now, you can ignore all of this nonsense because it's not correlated. It's not locked in with an area of rotation. But perhaps just south of Bakerville here, southwest of Bakerville, that area of a slightly lower correlation coefficient, it unfortunately aligns with that couplet, which also aligns, by the way, with our little cinnamon bun here on the radar reflectivity. And again, that's a sign if we go back and forth lapsing. There's when this was maximized north of Mount Pulaski there, just around 720 Eastern, 620 Central. What's that look like here as we go back to the correlation coefficient? I'm going to scrub back in time. And you can see there's a little bit of continuity between some noise in the data there, taking that general path. I don't want to dwell on this much longer because it's not a textbook case, but there may be a possible tornado in that area based on the correlation coefficient. The stronger compelling evidence is, frankly, the rotation. That is more just traditional, typical radar 101. We have strong outbound wind here, strong inbound wind just northeast of there, and the risk of a tornado is obvious from a velocity standpoint in eastern Logan County, Illinois, moving into western, southwestern DeWitt County. And by the way, we can't sleep on this in Macon County, Illinois. This area of rotation is likely to come real close to where these three counties intersect and then move into southwestern DeWitt County, Illinois in the next few minutes. Stay with us on AccuWeather. So that was a look there. We were sharing with our friends on the AccuWeather Network what's going on as well. I have been taking my eye off the chat more than I intended to, but Jesse Farrell is picking up for my Slack here, answering some of your questions, and I appreciate that there, Jesse. I'm using the wrong mouse. I got too many mice. I have like 6 computer screens here, and this is a labyrinth of confusion. I got 3 mice. Look at this. I pick up the wrong one quite a bit. 2 are wireless, and it's fun. I enjoy doing this. We're doing this more and more on AccuWeather. There are a couple of others who get tremendous traction on YouTube, and again, you got to stay with the trends here in the media because things change so fast. So we appreciate those of you who have been with us for many years. AccuWeather's been around for 62 years. Download our app. It's the world's best weather app. And I admit, when I worked in local TV, I thought that a lot of these larger weather apps were similar or maybe even almost the same. I've been impressed after coming here 9 years ago. There's an army of human beings who are behind the AccuWeather app, they're heart and soul behind the actual data that populates your app and the AccuWeather.com forecasts. I'm looking at my phone there. So it's not just model post-processed garbage, which you will find on a lot of other apps that don't have the human touch. There are a lot of big companies that have a weather app, but they don't have 125 meteorologists working for their company, so they can't do what we do here at AccuWeather. That's why we're big fans of you downloading our app, so you're always connected with us. But big picture reset, here is your setup We have numerous storms, 2 tornado warnings at the moment, and then a really volatile setup here. These storms in southern Missouri, not all of them are maintaining their severity, but one of these is. It's the dominant storm in the neighborhood, and it's beginning to step into an untapped area. When I say untapped, there haven't been storms in this area yet. This is a wide, if there's a storm with an open road here today, it's this one. And there may be more to follow to the southwest. But this whole environment over the northern half of the Ozark Plateau is an area where we have not seen storms recently. We have plenty of moisture. We have plenty of humidity in place. And when we look at the satellite data here, this might be the last time I showed the visible because it's going to get a little bit darker. The clouds that you're seeing are the blow-off tops from these storms themselves. Independent of the, I say blow-off tops, the storms are several tens of thousands of feet high, 40, 50,000 feet up there, and the winds aloft are carrying the cirrus shield of those clouds east. But outside of those clouds, it has been a day with lots of sunshine in this area, so it's warm and it's unstable there, and we're going to continue to see these storms enter this unstable, warm environment that will be unobscured by other storms nearby. So that's why these storm chasers that we're talking to are down here, even though the tornado warnings that we're facing right now are up to the north, and they're mainly, most of them are kind of either in a cluster of storms or part of just a squall line themselves. All right, Springfield, Illinois, tornado sirens earlier there. Rochester, Illinois, getting nasty out there. Hey, we appreciate you guys, and I don't mean to be a commercial. You know, everybody knows when somebody's trying to sell them something, obviously. And, you know, we're a company that wants you to use our products here at AccuWeather, but we do care about you, and we believe in our product here. So that's why we sometimes get enthusiastic about what we're doing. And we appreciate that you're turning to us right now. We're going to rejoin the AccuWeather network here in a few seconds. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather network as we continue our live YouTube simulcast. We are talking with some people on the chat here. Tornado sirens recently sounding in Springfield, Illinois, and Springfield, Missouri's had some nasty storms as well. Aaron J. Jack is on the prowl, and he captures some really amazing scenes in the course of any given week during a severe weather season. Most days he captures them too. So Aaron, you're in Goreville, Illinois right now. Is that where you still are located?
I think I'm a little bit more east and northeast of there. I'm coming up on Stone Fort, Illinois. I've been tracking these little attempts at storms. I tracked this last one all the way from Jonesboro to the northeast here, almost to Stone Fort. It came close to being able to get through the cap, it looked like, before eventually it failed as well. The top got sheared off and it raced off to the northeast about 50, 60 miles an hour, maybe faster. So fast-moving storms here initially when they're trying to get going, they should slow down a little bit if one does root. But so far, thankfully, that cap has kept these storms at bay. But that could be a more dangerous thing later tonight. I do expect storms still to fire here in the next hour to 2 hours in this warm sector out ahead of that main line, potentially a couple of storms out ahead of the main line. But then there is that main line still sweeping through. It's way off to the west right now in Missouri, but it will be coming through this area after dark, which will be quite dangerous. You know, we are under a PDS tornado watch here, so the environment is right for strong to intense tornadoes. We've had those low-level winds just absolutely ripping out of the south all afternoon, and of course that low-level jet will strengthen tonight as these storms move into this southern portion of Illinois. So very dangerous setup still. Like I mentioned, thankfully so far, all these little blips have failed to become storms. So, you know, like I said, this last blip was the closest attempt we had to a storm actually rooting down. I actually saw the base had a conical shape to it. So came real close to having a storm. So maybe if we get another attempt, those storms will probably, I think we'll be able to get through the cap. So we'll still be determined. We're going to keep tracking here to the east, maybe a little bit to the north here, watching back off to the west. I can see some more towers still back off to my west and southwest. So looks like that next round attempt will be coming here very shortly. Back to you, Geoff.
All right. Thanks so much there, Aaron J. Jack, on the move in southern Illinois. We just had the town where you were located up here. And again, we're on the move here through many spots. in southern Illinois, getting in position here ahead of more storms, Sanborn and points east. So we'll continue to track all that. I want to take us back up into central Illinois. I'm going to hop over to another radar site, pulling back the Springfield, Illinois radar site. We got a couple of Springfields in here, but north of Decatur. This is a nasty storm. Then we're going to hop down to another one down south of St. Louis. That's a new trending concern. So here we have the area of southwestern DeWitt County, Illinois. This is a storm we've been tracking, northwestern Macon County. And as we look at the velocity couplet with this one, first off, I'll show you where we're going to see it, even before showing you that. Here's the, it's like the conch shell or cinnamon roll there. You can see how part of the storm's getting wrapped around just west of Roll. There's your tornado threat. Take shelter. By the way, we're looking at this very low, 14, 15 miles from the radar site. So this is like a low-level scan, just a few hundred feet above the ground. Looking at the velocity signature now. There is, again, it's embedded within an area of straight line winds. We got a couplet into Rowell as well. And this is just kind of a little deviation here from what is overall a squall line. So if this were totally flat, if there were totally flat there, we would just be talking only about straight line winds. But because there is clearly a notch, this is a QLCS embedded tornado threat. There's your notch. And you can see it doesn't take a whole lot of imagination to envision the circulation within this. So again, there's your area of rotation just west of Rowell. And I wanted to switch over to a wild product called the correlation coefficient. And unfortunately, we're seeing this little drop out there and that blue dot. Now you can ignore the other blue dots. This data is it's a mess to interpret on TV because you have to correlate these little specific dropouts. I say dropouts because there's less than one, with the actual rotation. I do believe that we're dealing with a tornado here because of this correlation coefficient dropout. That blue dot here is showing that the radar is seeing stuff that's not all the same size and shape. Now down to the south, it might be bugs, but there, and I'm not exaggerating, but there in that one spot west of the R in Rowell, unfortunately, that aligns generally with our area of rotation west of the R in Rowell, and also it aligns with our cinnamon bun here, that little conch shell shape where we have that notch. So again, there are some signatures of tree debris or leaves or maybe vegetation or something being lofted up into the atmosphere. Hopefully no structural components. You don't want shingles up there because that's a sign of damage or worse. But again, possible tornado there, southwestern DeWitt County, Illinois, and the northern parts of Macon County, Illinois. That's a big concern. We're also tracking a couple of cells now in the St. Louis metro. Well, maybe not the metro, but south and north of the city, beyond the suburbs. So here we have the view of a new cell. This is a new one. This has a nasty shape to it. I'm concerned about this one in Washington County, Missouri, southern Franklin County, Missouri, Jefferson County, Missouri. This cell has a threatening shape to it, and one of the concerns for me is there is nothing obscuring this. This is a wide open road, so there's no cell interference. It's not like we have other storms, as we've seen elsewhere, popping up to the south and racing up in a different vector to interfere with it. That's not happening with this one. We're going to see a strong area of rotation. I'm concerned when we bring this up. There it is. And I'm seeing this for the first time along with you since we've been commercial free. There's your area of rotation. Possible tornado between Halsey and Northcutt in Washington County, Missouri, including parts of Franklin County. I'm going to bring up, I want to get an assessment here of the speed at which this is moving. We had 2+ inch hail, by the way, with this cell too. Moving east at 50. Honestly, it's maybe a hair northeast of due east. Sometimes supercells can begin to turn right. It could become a right mover, which might give it a true 90-degree heading. Moving at 50 miles per hour. So this would be moving into an area potentially near DeSoto. Well, DeSoto in 30 minutes. Cedar Hill Lakes in 27. So that would give us, what, 7:07 Central Time for DeSoto, 7:06, 7:07, and about 7:03, 7:04 Central Time in Cedar Hill Lakes. Take shelter. This is a nasty storm rolling east here with tornadic likelihood, not just potential. I would say that's likely a tornado producer there, given that scan. I'm going to go north now. We're going to go back into Jerseyville, and eastern Jersey County of Illinois. The risk is a little greater east of there. I think our best bet still will be the St. Louis radar site. And the primary risk, Macoupin County, I'm still seeing that hook there. The velocity scan, how's that look? Man, I think that anybody in eastern Jersey County is going to be okay at this point. It's really a threat for the threat for Macoupin County now. So I would argue for the western part of this warning in Jersey County to be canceled, and maybe the Weather Service will do that soon. But I'm still concerned about Macoupin County and especially Gillespie here, this area of Gillespie in Macoupin County facing an ongoing severe thunderstorm threat. Doesn't quite have the tenacity of the storm to the south, but the reflectivity and the velocity scan arguing still for a tornado threat here. Now, this is the velocity that I have up here. The green is the inbound and the red is the outbound. So that's the approximate movement here. I'm going to pull this out here. And again, this is all based on radar data out from the southwest. So this is part of a squall line. And there would be potentially a brief tornadic spin up here. And maybe this is trending here to the east near Hornsby. I'm seeing a little bit more of an outbound push there. There's some subjectivity to tornado interpretation, radar interpretation here. But we do a lot of this in the afternoon and evenings here at AccuWeather. And this is a storm that's pulling east of Litchfield. When we bring up the reflectivity, it's still arguing for an area maybe west. So again, and the Weather Service did just cancel. We said this just maybe a moment before they did it. They agree that they pulled the tornado warning out of Jersey County, Illinois. The risk is clearly in Macoupin County, Illinois at this point, and no longer in Jersey County. Now, Jersey County, you have a severe thunderstorm threat continuing and a flash flood warning continuing, but the risk is present north near Litchfield and south near Sullivan and east of Sullivan in the St. Louis area. Sullivan and Festus more in the metro, getting out of the metro farther north for that Macoupin County warning. But parts of southern Jefferson County, Missouri, under this tornado warning, most of the county, southern Franklin County, and man, this is a nasty looking cell here, running right along the Washington-Franklin County line. South of St. Clair, if you're in St. Clair proper, you have a severe thunderstorm warning, but it's the southern area south of I-44 where the tornado warning is present at this point. And we got a close eye on you in St. Louis. There you can see the view, by the way, that webcam from EarthCam is in East St. Louis, Illinois, looking west across the river. And that's the view there. It's the third image on the right. To the left, you can see Louisville, Kentucky, where we're facing some heavy rain. There's a severe thunderstorm on the eastern doorstep of Jefferson County. It also includes areas like northern parts of Shelby County. I'll get the city labels up here. Shelby, Oldham, and Henry counties. Northeastern Jefferson County, a severe thunderstorm warning in progress. There's a cool sky shot there from Brandon Clement's cam as he is in transit. You can see the edge of one of those thunderstorms to his west, and the sun is beginning to set behind it. So he is looking, this is a pretty cool shot there. He is looking way west, and I think he was seeing the tops of some of this convection here, and the sun is just peeking out from behind that as he is in northeastern Arkansas. I think he's still in northeast Arkansas. He may be pooling north. I suspect, I'm not a chaser, but I'd be heading north, and I bet he's doing that as well because there's more established convection that's moving into an untapped environment. He started the day a little south of Jonesboro. I think he's moving northbound right now, and he was looking west. And it's just amazing how the shadow of storms, if they're very tall, can be cast over 100 miles as that sun sets. Think about a very tall, 7-mile tall storm and the sun that hits the horizon. The footprint of the shadow from that 7-mile tall storm is going to be cast over many, many dozens of miles to the east. Sometimes you can get a storm west of Oklahoma City cast a shadow over Fort Smith, Arkansas. It's an amazing thing to behold, and I think that's what we're going to begin to see here out of these storms in southern parts of Missouri as he was looking west. And again, the interplay between that setting sun, it's getting lower on the horizon, still 6:42 Central Time, is beginning to cast a shadow over a big chunk of the Ozark Plateau. all the way into some of the farmland of northeastern Arkansas. Jesse, I'm on board. I'm looking at your comment there from 10 minutes ago. We did look at that there. That St. Louis, south of St. Louis tornado warning. That is certainly a concern. And that one, man, I'm concerned about this one. It has a very open road. I'm talking to the Weather Matrix, Jesse Farrell, in the YouTube live chat. We use Slack here at AccuWeather, and we're using an internal communication tool to some extra eyes and ears for me so I don't miss anything. And we're keeping an eye out. I'm bringing up the chat here. I haven't looked at this for a few minutes, so I am just scrubbing through some of your comments. But the biggest threat in my mind right now is this storm south of the St. Louis area. We do have a new warning now north. This is very much Metro St. Louis, very much Metro St. Louis. A lot of people, we got 4 tornado warnings now overall. The trend is spiking here in the St. Louis area. So the tornado, the possible or likely tornado to the south here is running along the Franklin, Washington County, Missouri line, soon to enter western Jefferson County, Missouri. Switching over to the velocity scan, I just want to get us a better set of eyes on that. That's a nasty looking storm with this couplet. Red outbound, green inbound. There it is. It's probably on the south side of the Washington Franklin County line. Do we see any correlation coefficient dropout? Very noisy data. I know there's some low numbers there, but man, that's too broad. So no meaningful information there. We would be looking for a very pinhole specific zone of that. That could be a mix of some hail and some rain and some bugs on the south side of the storm where it's not even precipitating, if that's a verb. We're going to get a really close view of this storm to the north from the radar site. Man, it's so close. This is a possible area of concern. We're going to investigate this with our live viewers on the AccuWeather network here in a few seconds. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather network. We're very concerned about areas north of and south of St. Louis for tornado threats, and also up into parts of Illinois as well, into central Illinois. But I have the St. Louis radar set right now, and that is what we're looking at. The area of greatest concern is for a cell running along the Franklin, Washington County, Missouri line. This is a bit south of St. Louis, southwest of St. Louis. I realize that we look at maps all the time here at AccuWeather, and we're moving the map around, doing all kinds of things. Just to give you some bearings, here's I-44. Here's Rolla to the west, about halfway between Springfield and St. Louis. Here's the Mississippi River. So we got Illinois to the east. Here's the river, zigzag, zigzag. And then we have Missouri here on the St. Louis side of the suburbs, south of town. We're dealing with a nasty storm. And as we zoom in on this one, the velocity scan is arguing pretty firmly for a tornado here. We have an area of outbound versus inbound wind. I did bring up the correlation coefficient earlier during the break. Wasn't terribly impressed with that, which is a good sign that maybe we're not seeing debris lofted up too much yet. But we do have some concerns here about this area of rotation approaching Hurricane and Hensley. I know in West Virginia there's a town with the same name. They say Hurricane. Not sure how it's pronounced. I would probably expect Hurricane in the Missouri side of this. Now I'm looking at this new area of rotation that has prompted a tornado warning. I suspect the motivator here is this zone right here, crossing the river, moving from Missouri into Illinois right now, near Alton. We're so close to the radar site that we're getting an uber down low view of things. And this is, this is a really messy view here because we're looking at some basically little kinks along the squall line where we're dealing with a couple of areas here where we could see a brief tornadic spin up. This would probably be an EF1 or EF0 if it spun up. I say that because it's not a supercell. It's really quasi-linear, big zone here of the squall line here, and little notches are where we're dealing with tornadic spin up potential. It's hard to say with total confidence precisely which of these little notches might be the next one to spin up, but conditions vary so much. And near West Alton at Fort Bellefontaine, or Bellefontaine, not sure how it's pronounced, right over the river, there's an area of a little bit of a couplet, and that might be the greatest risk among those varying areas of notches. But by far, totally different environment to the south. High confidence in the tornado between the Franklin County, Washington County line and Missouri, soon to enter western Jefferson County. If you're anywhere between Hensley, Fletcher, and the river, the Mississippi River, in Sulphur Springs, Pevely, Festus, and Selma in eastern Missouri, south of St. Louis, take shelter. You have a nasty storm moving in your direction. Now we want to head to storm chaser Connor McCrory, who's joining us live from Anna, Illinois. And Connor, a lot of concern down this way about new development. Are you still in Anna? I know that you're on the move at times.
Yes, we're still down here in Anna. We actually haven't been here that long. We've been kind of getting pulled in various directions today as certain areas look like storms are about to develop, and then they go on to not do exactly that. So, but as you've noted, up south of St. Louis, there is a new tornado warning with that storm that's a little bit out ahead of the line. So just before I joined you here, we made the call. We're going to blast north. And maybe by the next time I speak with you guys here in about an hour, we'll actually have a view of the storm to show you. As you can see behind me, there's just really not that much going on down here in the far southern part of the state. It looks like a few storms were getting ready to get going just a few minutes ago, but that hasn't really panned out like we thought it would either.
All right, well, we'll keep a close eye on this. And Connor, Brandon Clement was down in Arkansas and moving north. And from his perspective, he didn't have as many clouds as you have, but he could see some of the tops, the cloud tops from way out in Missouri, with a pretty photogenic shot there of that shadow that's cast over many dozens of miles east of these tall storms as the sun begins to set. Have you been fairly cloudy down where you are? I know you're near some of the ongoing weaker convection, or has the sun been out at times in the past few minutes for you?
It's been pretty cloudy. We've got a pretty thick cumulus field surrounding this whole area, and every now and then one of those cumulus clouds starts to grow, turns into a nice tall tower, but something's going on. The capping's a little too strong. Maybe there's just not enough lift, and we haven't been able to get a sustained storm down here quite yet.
All right. Well, storm chaser Connor McCrory, I don't want to slow you down. I know you want to hit the road and get farther north, or perhaps move a bit to get into position. So thank you for your updates. Be safe out there this evening and all season long.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Aaron. Or thanks, Connor. We appreciate Connor McCrory. He's got some great stuff here. We appreciate all of our chasers. They just shoot such amazing video. And, you know, we have HD cameras in our phones these days, and we can track storms with so much more precision with radar. And it's just amazing what we can see now compared to a decade or two ago. I think it gives people the sense that the weather's gone nuts because we can document so many things. And a lot of this is just the way that we consume the world around us, and we can share it now in spectacular high definition so easily now compared to 30 or 40 years ago. And what used to be, buried on page 6 of the New York Times on the other side of the world 80 years ago, we can see it as it's happening on YouTube Live or wherever you may be. Somebody's wondering about Rolla. Hey, I feel good about Rolla right now. And I say that from the perspective of specifically in the city limits of Rolla. There's still a severe thunderstorm down in southeastern Phelps County, Missouri, so I don't feel so good about that. But if you're in Rolla, downtown Rolla, I've been there many times, part of my long commute there between Joplin, Missouri, and some other places that we've lived. We are feeling good about that, about Rolla, because the severe risk is mainly through your area. Now, there's still going to be some lightning potential around. We have some pesky storms to the west. We've got to keep an eye out for these. There's another storm near Newburgh, but I suspect that Newburgh storm may move through in a non-severe state, but there is still a severe storm to your southeast. That's a nasty storm. Very concerned about the storm entering southern Crawford County and Dent County on the eastern doorstep, exiting Rolla, moving into Cuba and beyond. Thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather YouTube live simulcast. I know you've been with us the whole time, so you're saying, why are you welcoming me now? But the AccuWeather network just went to break. So, I'm checking out some of your comments. Fluorescent, and by the way, if I'm not pronouncing that right, let me know. Fluorescent. I know I've seen your town name thousands of times. You're a big part of the St. Louis metro. It's a big populated area here. You're under a tornado warning, so I would take shelter if you're in Fluorescent or Fluorescent. I don't want to make it sound fancier than it should. I took French in high school, so I got to, there's that. But overall, this storm is bringing a risk of tornadoes to the north of St. Louis. I'm more concerned about the storm to the south of St. Louis, if that makes you feel any better. But still, if you're under the tornado warning here in the northern suburbs of St. Louis, take shelter. We're dealing with hundreds of thousands with a tornado warning in place. In fact, I'm going to bring up the census data for that warning. It's going to be hundreds and hundreds of thousands. It's 378,000 under that red wedge that you're seeing there, that polygon. Wedge is a bad word to use. We're not seeing a wedge tornado, but we may be seeing a tornado threat there. But that tornado warning is for 378,000 people. There's not a very obvious sustained couplet with this one. I suspect the greatest threat might be in this area here, where we have a little bit of a red against green crossing the river between Alton and Roxana, which is to your east near Fluorescent. But with that said, there's still a dirty squall line here, and I say dirty because there are some little notches, and there's another notch near Fluorescent, and that's why there could be a risk even over Fluorescent. Stay in your shelter there under that tornado warning. The warning runs until 7:30 Central Time. All right, thanks for being with us here on our nonstop YouTube live simulcast. We've been staying with that crowd, just talking to a viewer in Fluorescent or Fluorescent. I'm going to go back to the chat. I'm going to see if I'm pronouncing it properly. Not sure if I am or not. Fluorescent. All right, maybe I made it sound too French. Somebody's saying, show Ferguson, Missouri. In O'Fallon, Missouri. Is it over with in O'Fallon? Well, we're going to answer some of these questions. St. Louis, Metro St. Louis, you're right in the middle of this. In O'Fallon, you are done with this particular storm. I don't want to overpromise later, though. I really do think that the risk is going to drop off in O'Fallon. And I suspect it will continue to drop off. With that said, just very briefly, I'm going to deviate from radar. We're going to come right back to radar very soon. But here is a look at one product that's it's like a high resolution short-term model. So let's look at what's going on behind this squall line. So the question is asked for many of you in the Quad Cities in central Illinois, what's happening for me tonight? Am I done with this? So look at areas behind that. Let's scrub through it forward in time. Is there any new development? And there's a strong answer there from the HER. It says no. We're not going to see more development behind that squall line. And I've grown to trust this particular model. It's the HER. It's been cleaned up, made for TV version here. That looks a little simpler, but I am confident that we're going to be done with things in Columbia and Jefferson City, and also increasingly you're done with it in O'Fallon. I wouldn't go outside. You got lightning within a dozen miles or so. You could get more lightning there in O'Fallon, some lingering rain. But the bigger risk is down with this cell here before the commercial break on the AccuWeather network. This is the main concern. Ongoing tornado threat into Jefferson and southeastern Franklin County, Missouri, south of St. Louis. So again, I'm using slightly stronger language with our viewers there for that cell compared to the one to the north in Fluorescent, because the cells up near Fluorescent, we're dealing with, again, little kinks among a squall line. We could see a tornado there. We absolutely could. It could be an EF1. It could rip the roof off of a home. Is it likely? Not very likely. It's not very likely. That's good news. Still take shelter. The bigger threat with that is actually up into Alton. I'm more concerned about this notch that has crossed the river or is crossing the river. I want to look at the velocity scan with this one as well. And it's still messy. It's still dirty. This is not, if you're writing a textbook on velocity couplets, this is not the storm you're going to choose. And that's good news. You don't want the textbook version in your neighborhood, because that's something that you'll never ever forget. But in this case, we're looking at an ongoing risk of a tornado. The velocity scan is less impressive. I'm a little more impressive with the appearance here of this on reflectivity. And just sometimes I explain these this way. If there were a squall line that were straight line, we would only have straight line wind concerns. Unfortunately, it's not, and there's a dramatic cutout in that, and that little bend. And there's another one near Florissant, so I don't want to sleep on that one. But the Weather Service actually allowed the warning to expire. Look at that there near Florissant. So they agree that the confidence is very low in a tornado down near east of Florissant, and is still greater up to the north. So the Missouri side of that tornado warning that had been in effect for St. Charles and parts of St. Louis County has been allowed to expire. In fact, they canceled it early. But the tornado warning very much continues in Madison County, Illinois, where we have the continuation of that. You can even see the curvature there within this this little notch within our squall line. And sometimes you can get something that you might describe as a bookend vortex. If very strong wind is making a push here, 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 and here, and there's not as strong wind there, what might you get? If you anchor a pinwheel right at that apex, right between those two, right at the transition zone, that pinwheel would begin to spin like this, right? Or a windmill, or however you want to say it. So there is the risk of a tornado in that area. And the greatest risk would be near Bethalto, Illinois, northeast of St. Louis, on the north side of the Mississippi River, the east side, as the river bends. That's one concern. The bigger threat that had a different character earlier, I'm going to zoom in on this cell to the south. I got to let go of that one warning so I can zoom. This is changing character a little bit. There's still a couplet here. It's beginning to look a little more straight line wind to me, but there still could be a tornado with this. There's still certainly a couplet. But when I say that, and again, over time you just begin to interpret this more and more, the couplet is not very focused in deep green against bright red in a specific area. It's more elongated. And you'll notice the outbound wind, the red, is elongating even more. So the signature is, we got, and I'm going to zoom out here so I can see where the radar site is. It's almost directly north to south. So we're seeing a lot of wind moving this way, and a lot of wind also moving this way. So the pinch point here is greatest between Maupin and Ware, approaching Mount Freedom, and this is still rightfully a tornado-warned cell. But there may be some straight line wind in there too. I'm going to briefly bring up the correlation coefficient. Scrubbing back. This could be a modest signature here of some debris, but it's not clear cut. I'm going to bounce out of this as we get back to the AccuWeather network here on the air. All right, we are back with you on the AccuWeather Network. We've been chatting with our YouTube live people and kind of breaking down storms, looking at a few things kind of off air with our YouTube friends. And by the way, if you are in the area of a tornado warning, take shelter. You want to get down into the lowest floor of your home. The good news there in O'Fallon. Somebody asking about O'Fallon, are we done? I think you're done with the worst of it. And Florissant, severe thunderstorm warning continues for you. No longer a tornado warning in Florissant. Tornado warning continues here into an area of Madison County, Illinois, then to Jefferson County of Missouri. And we got some severe threats up to the north. I want to hop into this area here. I don't want to neglect any of these. Man, this is a ragged squall line, isn't it? It's not your supercell that we're concerned about. I'm going to get rid of the arrow there. I want to just draw a line. It's kind of a subtle squiggly line there. So within this, we have the apex of an eastbound squall line where you're going to have stronger wind projecting out ahead of some of the neighboring wind north and south. And what will that do? That could bring you a brief tornadic spin-up. So I'm going to switch over to the high-res radar data. Then we're going to take a look at what Tony Lawback is seeing here in just a moment. But bringing up the Springfield, Illinois high-res radar data, I'm concerned about kind of where there's a bulge here where part of the storm is outrunning other parts of the storm. I'm going to press pause on things. And before we look at any velocity data, and again, none of this, I haven't seen, I'm going to show this to you as I see it for the first time. So it's just live radar interpretation on the fly. We're commercial free during the breaks on the AccuWeather YouTube channel. So we've got wind that's kind of projecting a little faster out to drive some of the squall line east. But I'm also noticing a couple of little kinks perhaps a little bit up near Saybrook. I'm going to get rid of the arrow. Little kink up here, little kink over here, and then kind of a Boeing line segment. What does the velocity data look like here? And here's the answer. So there's obviously one dominant area of concern, and that does align with that eastward projection. So we kind of begin to put the pieces together, looking at different things. You know, when I look at this, I began to expect maybe that eastward bulge is the problem spot. How does that line up with... It's like you're at the doctor's office and you're doing different tests. That's one test. And then we bring up a totally different test, and this one shows strong outbound wind in the same area. So you begin to kind of assemble this picture of what's going on in the atmosphere in ways that we had no idea of 70 years ago. Radar sites directly to the west, so we're getting a real clear cut. That's a west to east strong wind. On the north side, if we subtract out the storm motion, that's what we're actually looking at. We're looking at storm relative motion. If we subtract out the eastbound motion to the storm, by default, there's actually wind that's moving toward the radar site if we subtract out the storm motion on the north side. So what does that do for us? It gives us this area of, by default, it's rotation. So I think this could be a bookend vortex. We got this strong push of wind blasting east. And if you have strong wind in one area, like that, and not so strong wind on the north side, what might you see? Well, you're going to get this eastward push. I'm going to actually draw this as a cold front. Ultimately, it is kind of like it's a gust front. If you have this kind of a situation, and I'm taking a few liberties with this, you're going to get strong wind versus almost neutral wind. What does that do? By default, you can begin to get a little bit of rotation there, and there's your risk of a tornado. So that's my concern. And if I were to draw a hyper-specific tornado warning for this, and again, this is not your official tornado warning from the National Weather Service, and it may not fully align with our official AccuWeather Sky Guard alerts going out from our team in Wichita, but just on the fly, I think the greatest risk of a tornado is something kind of like this near Mamet. And Mamet, you're not officially under a tornado warning yet. It would not at all be surprising if you got one out of this one, though, into Champaign County of Illinois, a little bit northwest of Champaign proper. But there's another kink down to the south. So the Weather Service, and rightfully so, they issue broader tornado warnings sometimes because these little squall line spin-ups, they evolve so quickly. But I'm concerned about the north side of this little cartoon cold front I'm drawing. That area near Mamet. That's where I'm most concerned about a tornado warning. And then perhaps also down here as well. You can get a bookend vortex in a few different ways. All right, I don't want to waste anybody's time. We got Tony Lawback on the line, and we want to head down to Stormchaser Tony Lawback, who's joining us from DuQuoin, Illinois. And if there's a man who knows how to pronounce it, it's Tony Lawback, because he used to work in local TV down this way. So, Tony, what are you seeing out there?
Well, Geoff, we've kind of abandoned the Carbondale area for the time being, not concerned in the near term for storms. You had mentioned it, that storm there south heading into Festus. Of course, the minute that I started pointing myself in that direction, that storm to lose some of its tornado radar. So I'm going to kind of poke up to DuQuoin and then cut over through Pinckneyville and kind of line up with that storm as it crosses the river there near Festus. Had a pretty good signature on it about 20 minutes or so ago, but like I said, the minute I turned to head that direction, everything kind of started to absorb. Is the outflow from that line behind it caught up with it, kind of undercut it. Like I always like to say, sweep the legs out from underneath it, and I think that line's going to ingest that storm. That's just going to become part of the severe line that's extending down from St. Louis right now. So that is my immediate focus. Obviously, we talked about the cap being an issue for us earlier, and I think that's what's largely saved us in a majority of this PDS tornado watch. It still goes till 11, so we're obviously not done. We've got storms coming in from the west, so we certainly will see active weather of some sort here. If it's not going to be in the next hour or two with individual supercells, it's certainly going to be with the squall line that's coming through southern Missouri right now. But the good news is once those come through, that hopefully will put an end to the threat later tonight. Now, the question being, though, and maybe you'll show this on radar as we get in, especially if you look at the southern part of Missouri, those individual cells that are on the tail end of the line, those bear watching. If those stay discrete, that could pose a nighttime tornado concern. as that makes the approach to I-55, then eventually crosses the river into southern Illinois. Keeping on their current track will likely keep it well south of the Route 13 corridor, which is the most populated area here in southern Illinois. So you got the SIU Carbondale, the campus there, Marion, Carterville, Harrisburg, very populated areas along that stretch here in southern Illinois. And certainly parts of this area taking a big hit last year with the higher end EF4 that went through the south side of Marion. So no strangers to severe weather here, Geoff. But again, we're gonna give that storm a look as it crosses the river, even though it does not look nearly. Right now, that's what we got down in this neck of the woods.
All right, good stuff there, Tony. I'm going to put in a request for the Louisville radar site. I'm going to just type this real quick into the chat. Jesse, I do see that cell east of Louisville getting just very close to the north side of Franklin County, Kentucky. I'm going to zoom in on that. I'm going to put in my request. I just want to make sure. Yeah. I was just seeing who's part of this one channel. I'm going to go. Thank you guys for bearing with me here as we are live on both YouTube and also the AccuWeather Network. The new watch box, I'm going to show you that as well. Could we replace, when I replace the, I'd like to do this during my commercial breaks instead of on the AccuWeather Network live, but forgive us, we're just not taking full breaks. We're going to get rid of Tulsa, we're going to add LVX, Louisville LVX. Louisville, Kentucky, because of that new tornado warning there. All right. Where were we? I want to talk about a few different things here. There is a new tornado warning. There's something that came to mind, though, when Tony was talking, and I want to mention that. So we have a new tornado warning. This is going to be embedded within the squall line. And in a little bit, we'll be able to show you the velocity data here. But northern Shelby County and southern Henry County, tornado warning in effect here. This is going to be south of the Kentucky Motor Speedway, which is closer to I-71 that connects the dots here. I-71 is not popping up on the map. Not in the database, apparently. But south of I-71, north of I-64, and still well west of the Bluegrass region. But this may make a run through the area near maybe Forks of Elkhorn or west of there. So we got to keep an eye on that. North of Frankfort, Kentucky, near Eminence and Bethlehem. Tornado warning there for you until 8:30 Eastern. Northern Shelby County, parts of Henry County, Kentucky. I was fortunate to work in the Lexington area for 4 years or so. Beautiful area there. But it also helps in moments like these with the local geography. Tornado warning for Piatt County, Illinois, moving into Champaign. Those of you in Champaign, take shelter. We have big concerns for you. The thing that came to mind with Tony was there was a severe event about a month and a half ago, where the Mid-Atlantic was on alert, and people... Some meteorologists said, well, we didn't do well with the forecast, and they kind of gave the all clear. The cold front was still to their west. We had hundreds of reports of damaging wind in the I-95 megalopolis. This is not the time to give any kind of an all clear. You know, we've got a vicious squall line, and the low-level jet, I would have no... I would not want to give anybody the all clear yet. You know, I know we need to move north here for the severe threat in the short term. Especially during quasi-daylight hours. But again, until this squall line clears this area, we have big concerns about the severe weather potential in northern Arkansas, southeast Missouri. And again, Tony Lawback is mobilizing, and others are getting in place here for this ongoing threat. Hey, after the commercial break, we're going to jump in on the Champaign, Illinois severe weather threat. We have big concerns there. And just so you don't have to wait here during the YouTube live break, this is a really messy cluster of thunderstorms with interactions between one and the next. And it's a lot to unpack here with clarity because this is not an obvious freestanding supercell. I'm noticing cell mergers when I look at this. When I say that, what I'm noticing is we have features of storms moving northeast. We have features of storms moving east. There's interaction. It's chaotic. Here's the general reflectivity, where the rain is falling, where the hail might be falling as well. So we have movement to the northeast in advance of this eastbound squall line, and these little cell interactions. Guy Pearson from our AccuWeather Severe Weather Center in Wichita was talking about this. That can disrupt storms or lead to brief instantaneous interactions, kind of like you're swirling your hand through the waves in the water. Little vortices could spin up for about 2 minutes and then spin back down because of these cell interactions. It's a very chaotic thing. And Champaign, Illinois, you are at risk of some of that. There's not a very clear-cut, obvious couplet that we can track. One thing that does stick out to me a little bit is this eastward bulge of the apex of this squall line. It's messy. It's interacting with some other northeast-bound cells, so it's going to be disrupted. But perhaps that could continue to impart some spin. And I'm going to switch over to the velocity scan in this area here. What are we looking at? It still suggests the risk of a tornado here, but again, it's very, very messy data, and I think it's going to be short-lived, brief tornadic spin-ups in this area, and you can see the winds kind of conflicted with one another. So the most meaningful thing might be just to draw this quasi-cold front. It's really not a true cold front. It's an outflow boundary, and where the apex of that is gusting most strongly, you can get by default a little bit of spin on the north side, so perhaps the risk is present for a tornadic spin-up approaching Thomasboro. I would kind of hedge my bets that way. Sometimes you can even get an anticyclonic. This is like a southern hemisphere type setup. On the south side of a bookend vortex, you can get a 98% of tornadoes spin counterclockwise, right? In the northern hemisphere, it's like that. In the southern hemisphere, they tend to go the other way. But sometimes on the south side of a bookend vortex, you can get a little bit of both. So again, a small risk south of Champaign. If I'm in Champaign and I have family and loved ones there, stay in your shelter. There's a small risk of a tornado with this one. It's a radar indicated warning. It's not going to be matching the intensity of what we see with other tornadoes elsewhere, but you can still get a spin up. And if you have an EF1 move through your neighborhood, it's something you will never, ever forget. And you will be glad that you were in your shelter if and when that happens. So again, we don't want to be alarmist, but that's the situation there near Champaign, Urbana, and the University of Illinois. So just take shelter in those areas until the warnings are lifted. And I want to see if perhaps the new radar site is in. I appreciate you bearing with me here as we're on the fly. We are in a commercial break right now on the AccuWeather network. Trying to argue with the system. Why can I not choose things? All right. Okay. Just looking at some of our resources at hand. I do want to bring in the new severe thunderstorm warning watches, the watches graphic, because we have a new update to that. Thanks for joining us here on the AccuWeather Network. We are tracking some ongoing severe threats, and this is a newer iteration of the watch graphic. But hey, guess what? Brand new severe thunderstorm watch just issued into Northeast Texas. Does it include Dallas? No. Yes, it does. Dallas County and Tarrant County. So Dallas-Fort Worth under this, under that new severe thunderstorm watch as well. I'm just kind of wreaking havoc with our graphics I scan. But from Dallas up to Texarkana and Idabel County and McCurtain County and Idabel, Oklahoma, we have a new severe thunderstorm watch. It also goes north up into Bentonville. Well, Benton County's been under the previous one, but Washington County, home to Fayetteville, and the area to the south of Bentonville, you're under a new severe thunderstorm watch as well. So I've kind of really moved that graphic around to oblivion. But that's a new development to the south, all the way southwest to Dallas. Severe thunderstorm watch now in effect, but some pre-issued tornado watches are in effect in southern Missouri. You will notice, it's almost approximately I-44, Springfield to Rolla to St. Louis, and south, where the watches are still in effect. Then you got I-64. I do want to take a look at what is going on. We're going to go to Marion with Stormchaser Aaron Rigsby in just 1 minute here. Aaron, I just wanted to briefly show our viewers what's going on in Champaign right now with an ongoing tornado warning. This is messy. It would be embedded within a squall line. I think it'd be possibly a brief QLCS tornado that would not be visible. And again, it's just a short-term risk here. The velocity data showing some strong outbound wind, and it may be more of a bookend vortex situation here as this band of strong winds radiates away from the radar site into an area near Rantoul. Possible tornado there north of Champaign. But if I'm in Champaign, stay in your shelter. If you got kids there, students at Champaign-Urbana, make sure they're in their shelter just for another 20 minutes or so. Tornado warning, less than that, until 7:30 Central Time. All right, let's go to Marion, Illinois. Stormchaser Aaron Rigsby is on the move. And Aaron, what are you experiencing right now?
Yeah, good evening, Jeff. So right now we actually abandoned our original plan of targeting those kind of isolated storms that were developing in southern Illinois. Those kind of got choked off by the cap, which is good news. But the bad news is that this area is not out of the woods yet. So the Champaign storms you were talking earlier, if you pivot that a little bit further to the south in the southern Missouri area, heading toward the general direction of the Boot Heel around the Piedmont area downwards into West Plains, Missouri, you're going to notice two isolated storms that are developing supercells. And if these storms right here, and I've seen this happen before, if those storms can stay isolated and move into this better environment where we have all this wind shear, I'm expecting these to be the strong tornado producers that are unfortunately going to be tracking this way into the overnight hours. We talk all the time about how the overnight tornadoes are the most dangerous because you can't see them coming until they are literally right on top of you. So we're making our way westbound and getting in position way upstream of these for when they develop, start to intensify, and potentially produce that strong tornado potential into the overnight hours tonight.
Aaron, I agree with you. Those cells, we are dealing generally with an undisturbed air mass in their path. I'm seeing one little fragment of convection kind of coming in just west of West Plains. It's going to interact with this cell that's approaching Mountain View. You could see a little cell interaction with that one, but I don't think it's going to be influential enough to kill it by any stretch. And again, outside of that, it's an open road for these storms, which is it's certainly concerning there. I'm going to bring up the Paducah radar site again, and we'll continue to track this whole situation, seeing a little bit of spotty development out near land between the lakes in western Kentucky, but those storms are not severe. And the main event, as Aaron is mentioning, maybe in the next several hours here in southeast Missouri, moving into the confluence of the Ohio River, comes down. This is western Kentucky, southern Illinois, and then down into southern parts of southern Illinois. There is kind of a sitting duck here for the strong convection from the west. The Stormchaser Aaron Rigsby, thanks again for that update. Be safe out there, Aaron.
Absolutely.
And we're going to continue to track these other storms. Hey, I'm encouraged to see that and to tell you that this tornado warning that was in effect briefly for parts of Henry County and far northern Shelby County of Kentucky, north of I-64, that warning has been allowed to expire. Straight line winds marching east there into the area around this is the Kentucky River. So here we got the Elkhorn Creek and the Kentucky River that come together there near Forks of Elkhorn. A beautiful area, great kayak area, and also some whitewater stuff. And that's where we're going to be dealing with some strong straight line winds there north of Frankfort, Kentucky. But the main event is still farther west. A lot of flash flooding. I don't want to neglect the flash flood concerns. You can see radar estimates here when it comes to flash flooding. 4.5 inches in 24 hours. That's a lot of rain. That's a lot of rain out there. North of St. Louis. And streaks of this. Man, we would love to see a fraction of this in Georgia, wouldn't we? We're going to see a better, more favorable pattern for some thunderstorms there soon. But we need this down in the southeast. Down into parts of Jefferson County, Missouri, up against the river, we're facing that ongoing tornado threat. I'm going to bring back the St. Louis radar site. 2 tornado warnings total, 1 in Missouri, 1 in Illinois right now. And the velocity scan, man, this looks disrupted. I think it's transitioning to straight line wind. The relevant part of this here is about to hit the river and move into Illinois. So here's the Mississippi River. Off the map to the top, off the map, way up there is St. Louis. We're in the southern part of the St. Louis suburbs. And if there is a tornado, if there is one, it's near Peverly, and about to move across the river. I am noticing, though, that instead of it being a finite zone where there's a strong couplet. It's kind of more linear and a little more broad brush. Possibly a tornado still, but transitioning probably a little more straight line wind as this enters western Monroe County, Illinois. And because of that transition, the Weather Service has not yet issued a tornado warning for Monroe County, Illinois. My sense is, if I was in the hot seat there for the Weather Service, I probably wouldn't issue a tornado warning for that one yet into parts of Monroe County. We need to continue to watch that cell, though. All right. And overall, we continue to track these storms. Overall, continuing to watch severe weather, 2 tornado warnings, and I'm with you here on YouTube Live for 2 minutes. The AccuWeather Network will be back with us in about 1 minute and 40 seconds. Tornado warning for Champaign, Illinois, and 1 for Festus. But as Aaron Rigsby was telling us, and I agree with him, the greatest potential for trouble is going to be out of these 2 storms down in, and arguably the third, but maybe these 2 or 3. They're supercellular in south central Missouri, over the Ozark Plateau. Yeah, I know there are some mountains there, but they're all under 1,700 feet or below 1,800 feet in elevation. They're not going to disrupt these storms. And I really think that most people probably overemphasize mountains' ability to disrupt tornadoes. I think we overemphasize, in a lot of ways, I think we overemphasize what we can see, and sometimes we don't really put enough value on things that may not be from our perspective. And, we live on the ground, so we see these mountains, and we think that that's really important. But there are a lot of things, a lot of drivers in the atmosphere aloft that are different from where we live, again, winds 10, 20, 25, 30,000 feet up, that are very influential in driving severe weather. I am noticing a new destructive tag, so when the AccuWeather Network rejoins us, I'm going to hit this hard. A destructive tag, this severe thunderstorm warning just went from orange or yellow to that peach color, and I think that's going to be because of huge hail. We're going to turn some reports on here and find out what is going on. We got some other helpful things as well, but there's baseball-sized hail in Drury in Douglas County, Missouri. So we're going to share this with our viewers here momentarily. Thanks for being with us here on the YouTube Live. We're back in 5 seconds here as producer Mel counts us in. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network, 723 Central. We've got some big-time hail in southern Missouri. Big-time hail right now across the northern part of the Ozark Plateau. We're well south of Interstate 44, way south. If you're tuning in from Rolla or Lebanon or Springfield, the curtain has been drawn. You are done for the night, and we're glad to say that. Joplin, you've had some tough weather the past week there in Jasper County, Missouri, including an EF1 touchdown on the west side of town, just south of Carl Junction, off of Schifferdecker Road. Well, we're done with that for this one. But we are tracking an ongoing hail threat. Number 1, look at the hail. I'm going to switch over to the high-res radar data. We're going to bring up Springfield, Missouri as our radar source and turn on this. Let's go to the storm hazards. You're going to see some black and white here. Big-time hail ramping up, entering this 3-inch diameter hail in Howell County, Missouri. Maybe a little southern Texas County. I'm not sure if we're going to be clipped by that or not. I really think it's going to be more of an issue for Howell County. And then eventually southwestern. If you're in Mountain View, I'm going to switch over to the high res. If you're in Mountain View and you don't have much of a walk between your garage or the carport and the house, right now, put that car in the carport. There's hail coming your way, and it will smash your windshield if you don't do it. In some places within 2 miles of Mountain View, big-time hail. A lot of insurance claims will come out of this. We're dealing with some large hail. Let's turn on the reports, and this is why I'm confident in that. The radar signature is increasingly threatening for hail size, and look at this. That E means estimated 2.5. 2.5-inch diameter hail reported out of this storm at 6:42. So that was 38 minutes ago, if I'm doing my math here, maybe 40 minutes ago. This storm is bringing more hail eastward. All right, the AccuWeather Network just went to a break there, but a destructive severe thunderstorm warning. This is like insurance claim hail coming into Mountain View soon, and we want you to be out of harm's way. I'm always a little conflicted about telling people to move their car in if the storm gets too close, because lightning is a danger. It's a danger. And sometimes people might say, all right, I'll do it in 20 minutes. So that's too late. But I was comfortable enough doing that because with the high-res radar data, we have a pretty good idea of exactly where the rain is falling right now within 2 minutes or so. It's not, watch this, I'm going to switch over to the low res. Look at that. It's not quite as precise, but with the HD radar, you can see the leading edge of rain is actually moving into and through Mountain View, but I'm not seeing a ton of lightning there yet. But the hail threat is, as I use the measuring stick, hail threat's about 10 miles to Mountain View. If this were any closer, I would not have told any of our viewers to do that. But I do feel like that's the right move. Nasty stuff. The auto glass people may be busy there tomorrow. 4 tornado warnings at the moment. You can see Champaign, east of Hillsborough, approaching Effingham. We're going to look at that one. That's a new cell. 3, where's the 4th? Where is the 4th? I'm sorry. 3 tornado warnings. My eye was drawn. I was drawn down to that destructive severe thunderstorm warning. There is a new severe watch. I'm just talking to one of my coworkers, helping out with some graphics. Thanks for bearing with me here. So, Decatur, Illinois, and Crossville, Tennessee. People were, all right, Crossville, Tennessee. You're wondering about Crossville. Hey, I'm late tonight. Damaging wind and to some extent some flash flooding could be concerns in Crossville. Let's go look at this. So Crossville and Cookeville, 2 decent-sized towns on near the Cumberland Plateau here, well east of Nashville. That was the question. So here we are, 3, 4 in the morning. Look at this. Now, these, I don't see a whole lot of discrete's a funny word, isolated standalone cells like we're seeing in Missouri. I don't see a whole lot of these big dogs that can bring tornado threats. And honestly, this HER is not doing great there for Missouri, or for Arkansas. It kind of misapproximated some of the convection there. But I do feel more confident in the overall eastward movement. Crossville, Cookeville, after 2 a.m., look out for rain and thunderstorms, a limited risk of damaging wind. We have you kind of on the edge. You're technically in some risk here in that area of the Cumberland Plateau. So that's your answer there. Any updates on Carbondale, Illinois? The risk is still there. It's going to be a late evening threat for Carbondale. The storm chasers are leaving the building. They're heading north from Carbondale, which may make you feel better about things. But our concern is the squall line as it is and the isolated supercells to your west. They still need to move through southern Illinois, and they will still move through southern Illinois right now. I think some of the chasers are moving away from Carbondale, Illinois right now because they want to see what they can see before it gets too dark, too late. And get in position for some of these storms that may be on a vector to come a little farther north. But you can see more storms will be rumbling deep into the night through these areas. Hey, I'm going to get rid of the model there and get back into business with the radar for the network. Thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We're tracking severe weather. 2 tornado warnings at the moment. Also, some huge hail coming into the area of southern Missouri. Look out, Mountain View, Missouri. The door is closing on the opportunity to get that car in the garage there in Mountain View, and I don't think I would recommend it at this point just because the lightning and things are beginning to pick up. I would not recommend it anymore. 5 minutes ago, I recommended people in Mountain View get their car into the garage, and now I don't want to suggest anybody to go out in the storm as lightning ramps up. But you have to make that decision for yourself. We do believe, and again, this product I'm looking at, it takes processing power. What's plotted back here is now over here. So I just want to be clear about that. I'm going to switch over to the high-res radar data. There you can see this is a more accurate depiction. That other product is estimating 3-inch diameter hail approaching Mountain View. Will it hit Mountain View? Oh, it's going to be a close call. It's going to come in either in town or immediately south of town. What we have seen is 2.5-inch diameter hail in Drury, Missouri. Bushy Knob, 1.5, Bushy Knob 2.0, Ava, Missouri 1 inch, but 2.5 inch, and the radar signature is suggesting a slight increase to hail size, so we may see some 3 inchers out there into Mountain View, Missouri. That's a big concern. Let's take you farther north here. I want to take us up into the St. Louis metro. The Weather Service agrees with my assessment. I said that if I were in the hot seat there in Monroe County, I would not issue a new tornado warning. They have not either. This is becoming more of a linear storm risk across the river, and I am on board with that here. We try to stay ahead of other weather sources here because it's a competitive game, and you know, we're partners with the Weather Service in some form. We love what they do. I know some fantastic meteorologists with the National Weather Service, but also we want you to turn to us here because we have full confidence in our products at AccuWeather, and our business partners rely on our warnings that are hyper specific, smaller scale than what the tax dollars can fund. There are a lot of Fortune 500 businesses that pay AccuWeather to give them hyper-specific tornado warnings for their industries, and a lot of long-range weather intel. Paul Pastelok does some amazing things, helping businesses make long-range decisions in demand based on weather. The weather affects us more than we all realize, and your buying habits as well. Let's go to Stormchaser Aaron Jack joining us live now from southern parts of Illinois, Benton, Illinois. Let's get down there. Benton, Illinois. There it is, Interstate 57. So, Mr. Jack, are you northbound or are you staying put at this point as we await the trouble moving in from the west?
Well, I was northbound, Jeff. I saw that storm south of St. Louis. And for a couple of scans there on the radar, looked quite impressive, like it might be a long track supercell and long track tornado. So started making my way to the north there. Thankfully, it got consumed by the squall line and weakened, and it looks like less of a threat up there as far as an isolated supercell. Nothing out ahead of the line right now, just that line. So I turned around now and got my eyes on those supercells on the tail end, Charlie, of the squall line. Off to the west, southwest of Cape Girardeau, the Carbondale area. Wanted to get down here into position for these, what looks like could be intense supercells coming through this area after dark. So transitioning to that nocturnal event. Thankfully for me, as a storm chaser, as I get down here south, we get into the Mississippi River Delta, which can offer an opportunity to see one of these big tornadoes when it's dark. It's wide open around the river there. Once you get away from that river delta, things get a little bit more difficult, a lot more trees, which means a lot more dangerous for me as a storm chaser, but also a lot more dangerous for folks in the path of these storms. So we're not out of the woods yet here. Just that first, we're potentially looking at multiple rounds of storms. When we were looking at the forecast earlier today, storms firing out way ahead during the day of the line. Thankfully, that did not happen, but now we have this line coming through. And again, the most threatening ones to me, the ones that I think have the most chance to produce tornadoes here over the next couple of hours are going to be these ones that are isolated, more discrete supercells on the tail end of the squall line, moving through the Mississippi River and Ohio River confluence area over the next couple of hours. Back to you, Jeff.
All right, Aaron, thanks for that. And hey, man, you may need your hail helmet depending on how this plays out with some of those big storms off to the west. I think we may have some insurance claims coming out of southern Missouri with this 2 to 3 inch diameter hail. We appreciate Aaron Jack on the move there, getting in position for these aggressive storms. The most volatile environment in the nation right now is generally what I'm highlighting here. I'm going to include far northern Arkansas into far western Kentucky. I'm being a little broad about this, but hey, we can use the red to go a step further here. And this is, in the shorter term, the area of significant risk because the atmosphere is very much untapped. And as we move through the area, Carbondale, Cape Girardeau, Mount Vernon, Interstate 64, I-57, and so forth here, all facing significant hazards and risks. I-59, 55 as well. I-55, a big risk. St. Louis has been a dicey spot to be lately. There's that scary-looking sky there in the bottom middle of the view there. And looks like even the top of the Gateway Arch, maybe it's not obscured. I'm not sure. Either way, there's a low ceiling. I don't know if it's that low. But as we go into the high-res radar data for St. Louis, the East St. Louis area, East St. Louis, is under a severe thunderstorm warning. That's actually where that camera is located. We're looking from East St. Louis across the river. That camera is actually physically in Illinois, but we label it St. Louis, Missouri, because that's what you're seeing. You're looking at St. Louis, Missouri, kind of through the base of the back of the storm. That view is looking this way. I try to plot red on a very dark image. That's what that view is looking at. And the individual storms, the worst of this is pushing through, with severe thunderstorms the main concern. A lot of reports of damaging wind, some hail, a lot of concerns there through this 60-mile-per-hour winds in St. Anne there in St. Louis County. So that's very problematic. A quick check at our storm-related outages. I want to bring up something else here so I just don't miss anything. Thank you, Jesse. Man, I'm sorry I missed a couple of your comments. The biggest local storm reports there, 80-mile-per-hour winds in Warrensburg, Illinois, 3.5-inch diameter hail in Versailles, Missouri. And we want to take a look at another area here near Fillmore, Missouri. I missed a couple of comments earlier. So I think that we've transitioned over to straight line winds with most of this. The velocity signature showing us a pretty good, contrast, but some of this is so linear that it's showing us the inflow. It's almost like there's now this is not literally the cold front, but it's a strong outflow push of wind associated with these storms rolling east. So at this point, we're tornado warning free in the St. Louis metro, but as we head farther north, the only tornado warning in the nation here is near Fayette County of Illinois, Ramsey to Sefton. Let's bring up the high-res radar data out of Springfield, Illinois, putting our glasses on. I want to make sure I'm using the most effective one for this area. So sometimes I use the measuring stick from Lincoln to this one, 68 miles. What are we doing from the area of 68 miles? It's going to be tough to beat. 68 miles there. The St. Louis radar site's west of there. That's 93. That's not going to help us as much. So Springfield, Illinois radar view of this area of rotation. Still pretty pesky there. It's embedded within a squall line, but we are seeing a strong screaming inbound and some outbound as well. Very strong outbound wind to the south. The eyedropper tool would show us 55-mile-per-hour wind in one direction, 56 in the other. So you could argue, and again, that there is perhaps 111-mile-per-hour gate-to-gate shear with this from one side of the storm to the other. But it is elongated and it's stretched out. So it's likely an isolated tornado spin-up within a larger eastbound squall line. So I think this is still mainly squally, and at the little apex here of this nudge, that's where you can get, man, I wish I could draw these a little tighter sometimes. I want to draw an arrow, and I ask it to do too much in a confined space. The risk of a tornado is there, present still north of Sefton, east of Ramsey, in Fayette County, Illinois. That's your only tornado warning on the map right now on a national level, but still a lot of straight line winds, a lot of big concerns out there, and some big time hail out of a cell moving into the area of Mountain View, Missouri. I'm going to bring up the high res once again down here out of Springfield. And any new reports out of this one? We do. All right, Pomona reporting 1-inch hail. That might be south of the worst of it. Willow Springs golf ball. And Drury still is the top report there. The overall, we have reports of St. Anne, Missouri, northwest of St. Louis, trees on cars. That's a problem. It's going to be a busy day for the insurance people tomorrow. A lot of, hopefully, if you're affected by this, hopefully you have comprehensive insurance on your vehicle. I'm not an insurance salesperson. I'm not trying to push anything, but that's the stuff that's what will cover you if you have trees on your car. North of St. Louis in Fillmore, and in St. Anne, Missouri, northwest of St. Louis. Good reports there from Jesse Farrell. The Weather Matrix. Stay with us here on the AccuWeather Network. All right, we're still with you here on our YouTube Live. Our producer Mel is laughing. Don't know why. We don't have our commercial breaks. We don't know what to talk about. We usually catch up and make fun of each other during the commercial breaks, but Okay. I can't get away with anything around here. It's good. Murfreesboro, Illinois. Wondering about Murfreesboro, Illinois. Trying to remember where. You know what? What I think of with Murfreesboro is my mind jumps to much larger Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I think Murfreesboro, Illinois. Murfreesboro. There's an Arkansas too. How about it? A lot of Murfreesboros out there. If you have a question for your location, Murfreesboro, this is not like an. If you have a question about your backyard, here we are. You can always look up your location on the AccuWeather app and AccuWeather.com. Murfreesboro, Illinois, home to 7,000 strong. All right, you're down here in southern Illinois. You are in the area that we're concerned about, Murfreesboro. There's nothing urgent or imminent for you, but tonight's the night where you really want to have alerts enabled on the AccuWeather app. We have a graphic for this. John Porter loves this graphic. He's a big fan. I am too. Multiple ways when we do studies and when the National Weather Service does studies of why people take action. He did this after the Joplin tornado. Why people take action. What they learn is most people need two sources to take action. Ideally, you only need one. So a lot of the time, it's the human intervention of a family member or friend texting and saying, hey, tornado warning, and then they see it on the AccuWeather app. Hopefully they see it on the AccuWeather app first. But make sure you have, if you're in Murfreesboro, Illinois, take shelter tonight. If you have a warning, and what you really need is a NOAA weather radio. Hopefully you have a NOAA weather radio. I know that they're scattered in popularity in the northeastern U.S., but they should be in every single home, and they should especially be in every single home in the Midwest, and especially in southern Illinois on a night like tonight. And you want to have the AccuWeather app on with alerts enabled, so you will get more information as well. Hey, we have a tornado warning up in Wisconsin, so I want to get up there. This is the northernmost warning and the northernmost severe cell. This is a highly sheared environment here, just southeast of Black River Falls. Look at this, along Interstate 94, Jackson County, Wisconsin. We don't have the high-res radar data pulled in for this particular site because we're focused a little farther south. You can see a mere suggestion of a hook. There's a lot of shear up this way. The screaming straight-line winds aloft over your head are very strong, and you're near the nucleus of this storm system that's driving the bus behind the whole storm system. So because of that, even though there's limited instability, this updraft is like the little engine that could and had enough tenacity. I see about, 6 lightning strikes with it? All right, there's been more than that, obviously, recently, but in the past 10 minutes, 5 or 6. It's just a shallow updraft, but there's enough shear out there that there is some rotation. So we're going to touch on this with our friends on the AccuWeather Network rejoining us here, and on AccuWeather Now on Roku. Hey, did you know, even if you don't have cable, you can watch us. You can watch us on the AccuWeather Now feed on Roku and some other streaming services as well. All right, we're going to be looking at that cell, a new destructive severe thunderstorm warning coming up here as well. All right, thanks for being with us. I'm seeing a chat from somebody on YouTube. Hey, the sky is yellow in St. Louis. What's going on? Look at that. Sometimes if you're on the backside of a severe thunderstorm, you're looking out. I even see a hint of blue there, left of center, left of the Gateway Arch. That's an Earth Cam view there. So you're peering out from underneath this thunderstorm. And that view, I'm going to go to the high res here so we can show you with a little more clarity what we're looking at. This is somewhat of just an interesting point. Then we're going to get back into severe weather mode. But that view in the bottom middle is from East St. Louis, Illinois, looking across the river into downtown St. Louis. So what do you notice? You notice there's a lot of lightning to the west. That'd be behind the camera's perspective. A lot of heavy rain behind the camera's perspective. And we're kind of peering out to an area where that setting sun, there's some interplay between the setting sun, a couple of showers, one near Kirkwood there, down near, Six Flags down that way, and then another one east of Chesterfield, but we're also kind of looking in the gap there between. So we even see a hint of the sunlight peeking through and moisture and clouds and water vapor in its in its vapor form, but also liquid raindrops. They scatter light in different ways. And there's a lot of scattering that happens at different wavelengths and different types of sky with different constituents. And there's a lot of water vapor in that one. So it's just the perfect combination to give us a yellow sunset there. And again, I don't know enough about the chromatic scale and all that, but that's the down and dirty broad brush answer to what's going on there. There it is. We got a big font there, Mel. That's exciting. As we look out to the Gateway Arch with some showers north and south of that western view. Pretty cool. Peering out from the backside of what has been a severe thunderstorm behind the camera's perspective and moving farther back behind, deeper into Illinois. I did mention just during the break that we have a couple of tornado warnings. Now I want to take us south. We'll get to Wisconsin in a moment, but the first of the really aggressive-looking supercell tornado warnings has been issued here of the day. There have been numerous tornado warnings, dozens of tornado warnings issued today, but this is of a different character here, and this is just the first one among these supercells, and I'm treating these 3 or 4 supercells very differently than the tornado warnings farther north because they're in a totally different environment. And this is what we've been concerned about all evening long. This is the motivation for our high risk. That's 3 out of 4 of severe weather. These storms are going to have a pretty open road. You can see they're spaced pretty far from one another. There's a cadence to the atmosphere, and you can see there's like a rhythm to it. About 34 miles from one to the next, maybe 24 from the other to the next. These are far enough from one another that they're not interfering with one another much. Stormchaser Connor McCrory is going to join us now live in just a minute. But again, a lot of the chasers are getting lined up ahead of these storms that are in a really volatile environment here. And this is the storm that's been producing some monster hail for sure. But also now we have strong rotation, unfortunately. And we're looking at this from the Springfield, Missouri radar site. We got green inbound, we got red outbound, and the thumbprint is there for very large hail on the north side of the storm and a tornado to the south. So this is spinning up here, and I'm very concerned that this is going to become the big one here for the early evening, bringing tornado potential to many areas. And I want to get to Stormchaser Connor McCrory, who's joining us now live from Charleston, Missouri. So Connor, Howell County, Oregon County, southern Shannon County under a tornado warning right now. How are things going in Charleston? And can you remind me where Charleston is?
Charleston is down here in the southeast part of Missouri. We're actually heading west towards Poplar Bluff and over towards those storms you were just talking about. That tornado warning just went out a couple of minutes ago. And I know the last time we spoke, I said I was about to head north and get on the storm that was tornado warned south to St. Louis earlier. But after conferring with my chase partners, we decided that those storms down in the southern part of Missouri heading east into southeast Missouri are, they're more isolated than the storms up north. That one tornado warning earlier near St. Louis ended up becoming more part of that line. So we have these nice isolated discrete supercells in southern Missouri that is what we're targeting now. It'll be dark by the time we get there, but we're going to see what we can find.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. And Connor, I agree with that call to head west. I know you have to be flexible as a storm chaser and just read the tea leaves here hour to hour. This environment is pretty nasty off to the west. So you said you are making progress westward. Are you going to try to kind of intercept this in Poplar Bluff? I know that Poplar Bluff is an interesting spot because from specifically Poplar Bluff east, you're in basically the Mississippi River Delta. It's flatlands there. But once you hit Poplar Bluff, it's a very strong delineation between that and the beginning of the Ozark Plateau. It's like a razor sharp edge. Would you go west of Poplar Bluff, or do you think you're going to stay in the flatlands?
We're going to have to evaluate when we do get to Poplar Bluff. We certainly would like to stay east where it's flatter, where we have better visibility. It's going to just kind of depend on the timing, how the storms look once we get there. I'm leaning towards saying we'll wait in Poplar Bluff, maybe a little east of there, and see what it looks like when they come through. This wouldn't be my first time sitting here just east of the mountains in south central Missouri and waiting for the storms to come out. And sometimes you can get a good view of a tornado right as they come down into the flat plains there.
All right. Well, Connor, we appreciate you. Be safe out there tonight, especially as night falls. And hey, I know you're you're keeping an eye on trying to stay south of the hail as well, because this is a nasty hailer on the north side, as you are well aware. Thanks again, Stormchaser Connor McCrory. Great stuff. And for all of our Bernie Reno fans, holy moly, look what we found. There's the town of Bernie. He would love this moment, I think. We'll have to talk to him about this tomorrow in the meeting. All right, we want to go farther north. There is still a tornado threat that we talked about during the break. There is it's a highly sheared, low cape environment. What are we meaning by that? There's a lot of wind shear, but just enough updraft potential for some spotty lightning strikes up here just southeast of Black River Falls along Interstate 94 in Wisconsin, of all places. Tornado warning until 8:30 for parts of Jackson County. Take shelter there. All right, and we are now in the final commercial break of our YouTube live coverage. We've been trying to hit this during the time in which the chasers are getting the most compelling video, as daylight allows, and so forth. And again, the kind of the late blooming nature of this storm setup is going to carry a lot of the most volatile severe risk through the darkness and again, the nighttime hours. Now, population is fairly low in this part of Missouri here as we get down into the eastern and northeastern part of the Ozark Plateau. As I zoom in, the population picks up with Poplar Bluff, but you'll notice there aren't a whole lot of city labels popping up east of Mountain View, where we're facing some hail. So in the short term, we care about everybody equally. There are some areas of low population where people really are going to need to take shelter tonight here, north of Alton and north of Donovan, Missouri. But this is in a lower population area. In fact, this is a big warning. I'm going to bring up, I'm looking at the wrong mouse here. It's a sizable tornado warning, but by population, I'm going to guess 3,000. Let's see how we do. Maybe I'm way off. I look at all right, I did pretty well. The population of this tornado warning is 2,295 people. So 2,295 people live in this area. So it's a fairly low population, but it's still 2,295 people facing a tornado threat that we're concerned about. And the concern is that the risk will continue to increase as it moves farther east. And we have big concerns into the night for many other areas. So we're going to wrap this up here in 2 minutes. The AccuWeather app is going to be your best friend late tonight as well. All right, thanks for being with us on the AccuWeather Network. Look at that shot now in St. Louis as the sky begins to clear and the severe threat comes to a conclusion in St. Louis. That's not the case for areas farther east, but it's like the parting of the skies there as we look out into a beautiful sunset in St. Louis. Now, we're going to wrap up our YouTube live coverage here with some big concerns. We're very, very concerned about areas to the south in the eastern part of the Ozark Plateau in Missouri. Nasty storm. We have a tornado threat escalating here for 2,200 people, and we're going to be seeing more people affected by this as well, as this affects other warned areas into the overnight hours. But a nasty couplet here. Big time hail on the north side, by the way, and a likely tornado over Howell County, Missouri, moving into Oregon County. I'm just going to bring up the correlation coefficient. Nothing meaningful there yet. Hopefully that doesn't change. New tornado warning up into parts of the St. Louis metro obviously east of that view. We are looking east of the city by about 20 miles. We're real close to the second airport there, Mid-America Airport, I think it is. I want to switch over to the high res. The Mid-America Airport's pretty far east of St. Louis, and it's real close to that location right now. I think. I know it's east of there. Velocity scan here. What are we looking at? All right, we got the risk of a tornado ramping up right along I-64, so this could make a run near the airport and moving into Trenton and Germantown and Breese. So St. Clair County, Clinton County, tornado warning for you. Let's find the next warning. We got warnings up into Effingham, Illinois. 2 warnings for this cell. Earlier we looked at the Wisconsin one. We're not going to have time for that one before we close this out. But again, a tornado warning as well for Effingham in Effingham County and southern parts of Shelby County, Illinois. Stay safe with the AccuWeather app.